Chapter 2063. Half an hour later, a strange towering mountain appeared between heaven and earth. This mountain was covered with a layer of red ice and snow, like a raging volcano, but in reality, it was a bone-chilling snow mountain. The ice and snow were as beautiful as blood and as red as fire. This ought to be Scarlet Snow Spirit Mountain. A very long time ago, a figure at the ancestor realm of our primitive Tao court had once plucked a 33-petal red lotus from this mountain. Every single petal was branded with a natural grand Tao diagram, and it was extremely miraculous. Lei Gale Tower's eyes burned with desire as he gazed at the distant mountain of blood that seemed as if it was burning. Supposedly, numerous martial emperors of our Tao court consumed a peerless emperor tribulation when they attained the Tao and became martial emperors. A series of gasps sounded, and the descendants of the primitive Tao court were all shocked. Lin Sun looked from afar, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. It turned out that in the past, not only had senior sister Junhuan come, but even a progenitor of the primitive Tao court had also come to explore. "Let's go. Senior brother Kong Zhao and the others are waiting for us on this mountain." As they spoke, Lei Gale Tower and the others flew up and rushed towards the Scarlet Snow Spirit Mountain in the distance. Lin Sun followed closely behind. Halfway up the Scarlet Snow Spirit Mountain, there was a natural pool. The pool surged with dark red ice and snow, emitting a bone-chilling cold air. Kong Zhao stood by the pool with his hands behind his back, and after staring for a long time, he couldn't help but sigh. That 33-petal red lotus was born here. Unfortunately, when I came, it was already empty. Beside him, two descendants of the primitive Tao court each took out a jade bottle and were collecting the red ice and snow in the pool. Hearing this, one of them smiled and said, "Senior brother, the scarlet snow in this pool is born naturally, and it contains extremely dense essence of the great Tao. If we swallow and refine it, it will be greatly beneficial to our cultivation." Kong Zhao ignored him and looked to the side. On the bright red ice and snow, there were two people tied up on the ground. Their hair was disheveled, and their faces were livid and angry. One was Lu Dubu, and the other was Su Muhan. Kong Zhao said indifferently, "The chi shui in your eyes is just like these two useless things, not as good as Jin Di. Kong Zhao, if you want to kill us, then kill us. Why do you need to humiliate us with such a despicable method?" Lu Dubu clenched his teeth and said, as the #1 successor of the #1 orthodoxy in the Cloud Continent, he had now become a chicken rib in the eyes of others. This made Lu Dubu extremely ashamed and angry. Kong Zhao's eyes were filled with disdain. He looked down at the two of them and said, "I heard that Jin Di once saved you from two Qinjue, Zhu Feiyu, and the others in the Xianhuang mystery realm. Is that right?" Lu Dubu and Su Muhan's expressions were uncertain. They did not understand why Kong Zhao would mention this matter. Kong Zhao continued, "The reason why I didn't kill you was because I wanted Jin Du to save you again." In an instant, Lu Dubu and the other man completely understood, and they revealed expressions of rage while their eyes almost split apart. This fellow actually took us as bait to draw out Brother Jin. Despicable. As the successor of the primitive Taoist court and the fifth on the Holy King list, your means are so shameless. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the world? The two gnashed their teeth and cursed. Kong Zhao said disapprovingly, "Don't get too excited. To be honest, I'm also very worried that you two are not qualified to draw out Jin Duyi at all." The contempt in his words was not concealed at all. Kong Zhao continued, "After all, Jin Di is the successor of the Guiyuan Taoist court. What about you two? You can only dominate a small place like the Cloud Continent. Last time in the Xianhuang mystery realm, if there was no Jin Duyi, how could you have the qualification to enter the ancient immortal forbidden area?" Lu Dubu and Su Muhan looked gloomy and their hearts were full of bitterness. Kong Zhao's sarcastic words trampled on their dignity mercilessly, but they were powerless to refute, because even they themselves admitted that without Kong Zhao's help, they were indeed not qualified to come, senior brother. The people of Thunderwind Tower came and saluted Kong Zhao. Kong Zhao nodded and continued to look at Lu Dubu and Su Muhan. Full of mockery and ridicule, he said, "If I were Jin Dui, how could I risk my life for you two trash? It's not worth it at all." The faces of Lu Dubu and Su Muhan became more and more gloomy. "That's for the best, so that Brother Jin won't be implicated because of us." Lu Dubu gnashed his teeth, and his eyes turned red. Kong Zhao smiled and said, "You know why I didn't kill you now? It's very simple. When I see Jin Dui, I will burn your bones inch by inch and scatter your ashes in front of him. I will let Jin Dui see the price he has to pay for killing the members of the Imperial Kong clan." Endless hatred was revealed in his voice. After that, Kong Zhao turned around and called Thunderwind Tower and others to one side. He said, "On the way here, did you notice if anyone was following you?" Thunderwind Tower pointed at the snow-white flying sword that floated on his shoulder and said, "On the way here, I have been using the flying cry sword to probe, but I didn't notice anything unusual." Kong Zhao nodded and said, "That's good. Although the ancient immortal forbidden area is dangerous, there are still ways to avoid it. But if we are targeted by some ruthless people who don't play by the rules, it will be troublesome." Thunderwind Tower said, "Senior brother, do you really plan to use these two hostages as bait to attack Jin Dui?" Kong Zhao's lips curled into a playful smile as he said, "Jin Dui is a ruthless fellow. Even though I wish for nothing more than to tear him into pieces, I'm clearly aware that there must be a perfect plan to deal with him." Thunderwind Tower said in surprise, "Could it be that Senior Brother has other plans?" Kong Zhao nodded and said, "This time, whether it is our Antiquity Dao Court, Chinkin Dao Court, or the Multitude Dao Court, all of them see Jin Dui as prey. Especially the Chinquin Dao Court. They hate him to the bone." When he spoke up to hear, he suddenly asked, "Do you think it would be better if I give these two hostages to Huangfu Xiaonong of the Chinquin Dao Court?" Thunderwind Tower and the others were stunned. "Kill with a borrowed knife?" Someone's eyes lit up and said. Kong Zhao said with a smile, "No, it is to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, and then reap the benefits. If we can deal with Jin Dui without any effort, why not?" Thunderwind Tower couldn't help but say, "Senior brother, but you just said that you want to keep these two people alive, and when you see Jin Dui, you will crush their bones and scatter their ashes." "Why?" Kong Zhao laughed and said, "I was just scaring them. Why did you take it seriously?" As he spoke, he instructed, "I'll have to trouble all of you once more to bring these two people to a mountain that's shaped like an enormous turtle that's 15,000 kilometers away from here. Huangfu Xiaonong and the others are waiting there." "All right." Thunderwind Tower and the others received the order, and without delay, they brought Lu Dubu and Su Muhan and left the Scarlet Snow Spirit Mountain. When their figures disappeared into the distance, Kong Zhao's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he said, "We should take action. Senior brother, are we going to mount Buzhou?" Beside Kong Zhao, there were 6 people following him, and they all revealed expressions of anticipation. The Chaos Treasure was rumored to be in the mysterious Mount Buzhou. "Mount Buzhou? It's still too early. Let's go catch up to Junior Brother Thunderwind Tower and the others," Kong Zhao said slowly. "What?" The others were stunned. Kong Zhao stretched out his right hand, and a green jade talisman that was shaped like a water droplet appeared on his fingertip. "This is the Consonance Talisman given to me by the sect, and it can detect any unusual fluctuations of aura." Earlier, when Junior Brother Thunderwind Tower and the others returned, the Consonance Talisman sensed an obscure aura, and it silently followed us. Kong Zhao's eyes flickered with divine light. A guy who hides his head and hides his tail actually dares to target the successor of our Antiquity Dao Court. Who do you think such a bold guy is? Jin Dui? Someone blurted out. "It's very possible." Kong Zhao nodded. After all, the other successors of the Dao Court and the monstrous figures from other places in the starry sky are all focused on seizing the Chaos Treasure. It's impossible for them to choose to go against us at this time. Those people from the other provinces also don't have the guts to go against us. Like this, it seems that only Jin Di is left. Only then did the others come to a realization, and all of them revealed cold expressions. "Jin Dui, this guy actually appeared?" This was really surprising. Just now, I was worried that we would alert the enemy and let them escape. So I let Junior Brother Thunderwind Tower and the others leave, and even brought the 2 hostages. In this way, if the other party is really Jin Duyi, they will definitely chase after us. Kong Zhao smiled coldly, and his eyes surged with killing intent, and I have already told Junior Brother Thunderwind Tower to let them choose to stop halfway. At that time, we will follow from the rear, and together with Junior Brother Thunderwind Tower, we can form an encirclement and destroy the other party in one fell swoop. After hearing this, everyone present couldn't help but gasp in amazement. Senior Brother Kong Zhao was so meticulous. Let's go, it's time to close the net. Kong Zhao's heart also rose a touch of fire. If the opponent this time was really Jin Duyi, then he would absolutely be unable to escape. The group immediately set off. At this time, Lin Sun was following far behind Thunderwind Tower and the others, just as Kong Zhao had guessed. However, he vaguely felt that something was wrong in his heart, but he couldn't figure out what was wrong after thinking about it carefully. No matter, let's go and save Lu Dubu and Su Muhan first. Lin Sun made a decision. What happened on the Scarlet Snow Spirit Mountain before was also seen by him, especially when he saw Kong Zhao humiliating Lu Dubu and Su Muhan. The killing intent in Lin Sun's heart couldn't stop surging. He knew that all of this was because he had implicated him. Senior Brother Lei, how did Senior Brother Kong Zhao know that Huangfu Xiaonong and the others are waiting in the mountain 30,000 miles away? Could it be that he has already made contact with Huangfu Xiaonong? Suddenly, a voice caught Lin Sun's attention. Chapter 2064. However, when Lin Sun was ready to continue listening, he suddenly found that Li Finglu Tower and the woman in colorful clothes began to talk by voice transmission. And on the way, Li Finglu Tower and the others all talked by voice transmission. What do they seem to be guarding against? Lin Sun felt that something was wrong. I can't wait any longer. Lin Sun's intuition, honed by years of fighting, made him decide to take action without hesitation at this moment. Silently, the insignificant bow made of white bones and skeletons appeared in his hand. On the rough and ferocious body of the bow, there was a bright red bowstring. In his left hand, 2 magic arrows appeared quietly. One was snow white, emitting a vast expanse of silver light. The arrow body was about the thickness of a thumb, and it was engraved with 2 sharp and frightening Taoist runes. Auspicious light. The other was emitting an illusory blue light, and it was engraved with 2 mysterious Taoist runes, Peace Feather. The 2 magic arrows echoed each other's breath, and their aura was so cold that it made people's hearts palpitate. These 2 magic arrows were the spoils of war that Lin Sun obtained when he broke into Sunset Tang Valley, the lair of Golden Crow. He had carried them with him all the time and had never used them. Just like the J-Drop Arrow and Solitude Arrow, these 2 divine arrows were ranked amongst the 9 great divine arrows of the primeval times, and they were extremely miraculous and possessed extremely terrifying destructive force. Lin Sun's state of mind was like ice and snow, and his black eyes were neither sad nor happy. In fact, he decided to go all out. There was only one purpose: to save Lu Dubu and Su Muhan in one fell swoop before the enemy reacted. If the enemy reacted during the battle and used Lu Dubu and Su Muhan as a hostage, it would be troublesome. So, someone has been following us all the way. In front of them, the woman in colorful clothes looked uncertain. Yes, Senior Brother Kong Zhao even suspects that the guy who is following us is Jin Di. Li Finglu Tower's eyes were gloomy, and he quickly transmitted his voice. So, we should be vigilant this time and be ready to fight at any time. As long as there is any movement, we must attack with all our strength. Okay, the woman in colorful clothes and the other 3 agreed in unison. All of them were secretly accumulating power, and their chi was in a state of being triggered. Clatter! Not long after, a strange sound came from a green swamp not far away. Kill! The Thunderwind Tower and the others who'd made sufficient preparations since long ago moved out at the first possible moment, and they withdrew various Tao arts and treasures before blasting over in unison. The light of the Tao rumbled and danced in the air. Its momentum was so great that it caused heaven and earth to change color. However, in the next moment, the expressions of Leifeng Tower and the others froze. The jade-green swamp was blasted to the point it was riddled with holes, muddy water splashed about, and plants were burned. Not only was there no sign of the enemy, a group of jade-green moths had charged out instead, and they fluttered about in the sky while emitting furious cries. The Thunderwind Tower and the others glanced at each other, and they couldn't help but feel embarrassed in their hearts. They'd realized that they'd made a mistake, and their reactions had been slightly overboard. This scene, it was as if the wind was blowing and the cranes were panicking and the grass and trees were soldiers. Buzz, these moths were the size of a fist and were completely dark green. When they flapped their wings, they stirred up misty green dust. They seemed to have been infuriated as they howled and charged towards the Thunderwind Towers group. "Let's go." The pupils of the Thunderwind Towers group squinted, and they didn't hesitate in the slightest to flee. The ferocious beings in this ancient immortal restricted area were extremely terrifying. Even though these moths were inconspicuous, the aura they emitted was extremely strange and ghastly, and it caused the hairs of the Thunderwind Tower and the others to stand. Right at this moment, two divine arrows tore through space and flashed over from extremely far away, and they just happened to seem like two illusory flowing lights that had pierced through the ages to arrive here. Their speed was swift to the point of shocking. Most miraculous of it all was that the two divine arrows connected in midair and emitted a clear ring as they actually fused together. The bodies of the arrows became translucent and dazzling, whereas their might instantly rose explosively by a great deal, and a murderous aura that shook the heart effused out along with this. Shit! The Thunderwind Tower's expression turned grim as he sensed a lethal threat. At this moment, all of them were dodging the group of jade-green moths. So how could they have imagined that a calamity of death would suddenly descend upon them? It was too swift to the point the Thunderwind Tower didn't even have the time to warn them before he heard an explosive bang. A companion that wasn't far away from him had his chest pierced by an arrow, and his body exploded along with it, causing scarlet blood to splatter high into the air. Junior Brother Wong. A wave of chaotic cries of alarm sounded out. In an instant, a core descendant of their antiquity Tao court had been killed. This sudden scene of death caused all of them to be terrified. And this was merely the beginning. After shooting out the two arrows, Auspicious Light and Fragmented Feather, Lin Sun had already teleported with all his might and charged over explosively. Clang! The broken blade swept out like a river of stars, and its sharp light shook the world as it slashed towards the multicolored, clothed woman. Whoosh! 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 Countless Taishian sword cheese swept out like a torrential downpour, blotting out the sky and enveloping the Thunderwind Tower. On the other hand, Lin Sun charged straight toward the man in a gray robe, and in his hands he was carrying Lu Dubu and Su Muhan. Fast. Too fast. It was fine if he didn't attack, but the moment he attacked, it was a thunderous blow. Want to save them? Don't even think about it. The gray-robed man roared loudly, and his entire body glowed. He exerted force with his palms and fingers, and actually disregarded his own safety as he wanted to kill Lu Dubu and Su Muhan in his hands before Lin Sun could. What was even faster than his movements was Lin Sun's finger. Chi! A dazzling light swept out from the tip of his finger, condensed to the extreme, and also extremely sharp as it pierced through the air. The Thorn of Sharpness, the innate ability of the Platinum Taoist body. Poof! A bloody hole was silently pierced through the forehead of the gray-robed man, and his primordial spirit was instantly pierced through and erased. And the power that had yet to be released gathered in his palm, and was originally just a little bit away from killing Lu Dubu and Su Muhan, also dispersed at this moment. With a bang, the gray-robed man lay on the ground. Even in death, his eyes were wide open, and his expression was filled with shock anger, and bewilderment. He seemed to have never imagined that there would be such a terrifying power in this world. And at this moment, Lin Sun had already saved Lu Dubu and Su Muhan. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly, and the heavens and the earth shook. The group of green moths that were originally rushing towards this area wailed incessantly as they were affected by the terrifying shockwaves. Their figures rustled as they fell and turned into ashes. The figure of the woman in colorful clothes was in a sorry state, and she staggered back from the attack of the broken blade. Lei Gale Tower roared, and he used all his strength to dissolve the countless Taishian sword chi that came from all directions. But he was also injured, and many bloody sword marks appeared on his body. There was still one person who hadn't reacted earlier, and only now did he let out an incomparably shocked and angry shout, "Vile spawn!" His voice shook the sky. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, and it ended in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that it was unbelievable. And in such a short period of time, Lin Sun had killed 2 people in succession and saved Lu Dubu and Su Muhan by the skin of their teeth. That kind of fierce, swift, and domineering killing posture had thrown the world into chaos. It should be known that the experts who could enter the ancient, immortal forbidden area were all extraordinary people. But at this moment, they were caught off guard by Lin Sun. Firstly, the timing of his attack was extremely precise and ruthless, and he attacked when the enemy was unprepared. Secondly, with his current combat strength and the fact that he had gone all out to attack the enemy, there were probably few people in the same realm who could resist him. "Jean Duyi, it's really you vile spawn?" Lei Gale Tower, the woman in colorful clothes, and another man in a brocade robe gathered together. Their faces were extremely livid, and they were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Previously, they had been vigilant and on guard, but they still didn't expect that because of the appearance of the damned green moths, the enemy would seize the opportunity. "Brother Jean, you really came." Lu Dubu and Su Muhan had escaped from death, and they both felt as if they were in a dream, especially when they saw that it was still Lin Sun who saved them. They didn't know how to describe the gratitude and shame in their hearts. They even felt that they were a useless burden, which made Lin Sun take risks to save them again and again. "It's me who should be ashamed. If it weren't for me, how could you two be treated like this?" Lin Sun sighed softly. "Well said." Suddenly, there was a burst of applause in the distance. Kong Zhao, with 6 descendants of the primitive Taoist court, had already teleported to the void. His eyes were like lightning, glancing at Lin Sun and praising. "Look, in order to save 2 useless people, you don't hesitate to expose your traces. This is chivalry and courage." His voice was full of sarcasm. Seeing Kong Zhao and his people arrive, Lei Gale Tower and others all breathed a sigh of relief. They were frightened by the sudden attack of Lin Sun just now. If Kong Zhao and his people didn't come, they probably wouldn't have the courage to fight against Lin Sun again. "It turns out that you have already seen through my traces." Seeing this scene, how could Lin Sun not understand that Kong Zhao might have already seen through his traces when he was in the Scarlet Snow Spirit Mountain? The previous Lei Gale Tower and his people were nothing more than a bait. "Smart." Kong Zhao snapped his fingers with a playful and cruel look. "Unfortunately, Jean Dui, I'm afraid that you will lose your life here, not to mention saving people this time." "Just by you?" Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep and indifferent as before. Although he was besieged from the front and the back, he was not afraid at all. Kong Zhao stroked his chin and said leisurely, "You don't believe me? Now let me tell you why you can't save these 2 people." As he spoke, a strange and obscure voice suddenly came out of his lips. Bang! Silently, Su Muhan's body suddenly exploded, and blood splashed everywhere, dyeing the void and the ground red, which was shocking. Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed, and his heart seemed to be smashed by a huge hammer. An indescribable depression and anger erupted from the depths of his heart like lava, making his body tremble slightly because of anger. Dead? Were they killed by the enemy in front of his eyes? For a moment, Lin Sun remembered the scene when Tung Yichen and Gai Shanxing were attacked by Zhu Feiyu and eliminated in front of him in the mysterious Yellow Secret Realm. At that time, he was also very aggrieved, but he also knew that Tung Yichen and Gai Shanxing were eliminated without life-threatening danger. But now, Chapter 2065. Before he died, Su Muhan's face was full of gratitude and shame. He didn't realize that death had suddenly come. Perhaps he didn't expect this kind of death. This kind of death also made Lin Sun's hatred burn. Lu Dubu, who was next to him, was dumbfounded. His expression changed, and his clothes were soaked in sweat. Seeing Su Muhan die suddenly, fear surged in his heart. What the hell was going on? Kong Zhao said with a smile. Look, with a bang, the trash you saved died. Isn't it exciting? His manner was leisurely, and his voice was playful. The successors of Untainted Land Taoist court near him all shivered. They didn't expect Kong Zhao's means to be so treacherous and cruel. Lin Sun's black eyes surged with inexplicable coldness. He stared at Kong Zhao and said, I promise I won't let you die so easily. Every word was calm, with a kind of heart-palpitating firmness. Kong Zhao was startled and said, Jin Dui, why don't you dare to do it? You just worry that the trash beside you will suddenly explode, right? Lin Sun was silent. He was indeed worried about Lu Dubu's safety. Lu Dubu suddenly took a deep breath and said seriously, Brother Jin, I didn't have the qualification to ask you to do anything, but now, I only want to ask you one thing. Lin Sun had a bad premonition and said, What is it? Live? Lu Dubu said each word with a pause. These 3 words were said with great emphasis, and his expression was also very serious and solemn. Kong Zhao sneered. His companions beside him also laughed. Did he want Jin Duyi to live? Was it possible? Only Lin Sun's heart trembled. He understood Lu Dubu's meaning. Lu Dubu's eyes revealed a touch of madness. Brother Jin, if you are killed by these bastards because of me and Su Muhan, I will feel extremely guilty even if I die. Whoosh! He suddenly rushed out, his body glowing, and his entire body emitted a soaring battle intent. He was like a blazing sun as he rushed towards Kong Zhao. Lin Sun raised his head and looked at Lu Dubu, who jumped away. A touch of sadness and pain gushed out from his pair of abyss-like black eyes. He and Lu Dubu both knew that this was a dead knot. From the very beginning, Lu Dubu and Su Muhan's lives were already in the hands of Kong Zhao. There was only death. However, who would be willing to choose death? Lin Sun quietly clenched his hands, his knuckles turning white. Reckless. In the distance, dense disdain flashed through Kong Zhao's eyes, and then he uttered a strand of a strange and obscure secret incantation. Bang! At this moment, Lu Dubu was like the most dazzling, most resplendent light, falling from the sky. That blood was poignant and beautiful to the point of breaking one's heart. Live on! He still howled loudly before his death, and his voice reverberated through the world. Moths flying into flames. That's all I can do. Kong Zhao smiled playfully as he looked at Lin Sun in the distance. Jin Di, do you feel very incompetent and powerless? The descendants of the primordial Tao court nearby all roared with laughter. Whoosh! Lin Sun raised his head and glanced around the field. Finally, he looked at the place where Lu Dubu died and said softly, Brother Lu, Brother Su, my name is Lin Sun. I really regret not being able to tell you my name before you died. His low voice was filled with endless disappointment. What? Suddenly, Kong Zhao and the others were stunned, and then they realized something. All of them revealed expressions of disbelief. Lin Sun? Was it that fellow who caused a ruckus in the Kunlun ruins back then? How is this possible? Before they could figure it out, they suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. They saw Lin Sun in the distance looking over. However, his gaze had already become indifferent and emotionless. It was like a deep abyss that chose to devour someone. Attack! Kong Zhao shouted and took out a dazzling golden halberd. The aura around him rumbled, and he was like a peerless god. Kill! The Thunderwind Tower and the others attacked together without hesitation. Earlier, they seemed to be joking and careless, But in fact, they had been waiting for a long time. As soon as Kong Zhao gave the order, they all moved. Rumble, flying swords, sabers, Taoist seals, cauldrons. All kinds of incomparably wonderful treasures soared into the sky. They were overflowing with light and gave birth to all kinds of terrifying power that poured down. At the same time, there were all kinds of Taoist techniques with shocking killing power interweaved together and enveloped Lin Sun like an overwhelming force. These people were all the core successors of the primitive Tao court. If one were to look through the King Sage list, it would be easy to find their names. Each of them was dazzling, and their combat strength was shocking. They were the top figures among their peers, especially Kong Zhao, who was ranked 5th on the King Sage list. He was a peerless genius that was known to the world. At this moment, when they attacked with all their strength, their power could easily kill a quasi-emperor. This piece of heaven and earth trembled, and the nearby mountains, rivers, plants, and trees were crushed. The destructive aura reflected all kinds of terrifying phenomena. There was even an impassioned Taoist sound rolling out. Lin Sun did not dodge, nor did he retreat. The anger and hatred that had already erupted like lava in his heart burst out like a flood bursting a dam. Boom! He rushed out, his black hair flying, his whole body shining, dazzling, and there was a vague white sword chi flowing. That was the embodiment of the power of the platinum Taoist body being activated to the extreme. Behind Lin Sun was a chaotic Tao field that blotted out the sky like a curtain of eternal night, and it seemed to be on the verge of swallowing the sky. Bang! A large bronze cauldron flying towards him fell into the power of the chaotic domain before it could get close, as if falling into a swamp. Then, the ancient and powerful cauldron was violently crushed like a piece of paper before exploding. In the distance, a successor of the primitive Tao court coughed up blood, looking horrified. Then, countless treasures and Taoist techniques that attacked seemed to be imprisoned, suppressed by the chaotic Tao field, and fell into a stagnation, unable to move forward. Not only that, but they were engulfed by the terrifying, crushing power of the chaotic domain. For a time, the sound of explosions continued. How is it possible? Use your full strength. All kinds of exclamations of shock and anger sounded. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun, who was besieged, would have such a heaven-defying and terrifying combat strength. It was like an unreasonable, primordial divine mountain was moving horizontally, and it was unstoppable wherever it passed. Kill! A man roared, waved his sword, and slashed down. The sword chi was dense, the law flowing, and the power was strong enough to shock ghosts and gods. This was a trump card, an all-out attack. Lin Sun didn't even look at it. He bit his finger and said softly, "Die." Bang! The man and the sword chi he slashed out were shattered by a bright finger force, and his body was torn into pieces. Blood rained down. The battle had just begun, and a successor of the primitive Tao court was killed. This scene made Kong Zhao's eyelids twitch, and his face became ugly. The others were also angry, and their killing intent surged. Evil creature. A woman in colorful clothes rushed over and took out a square, golden Taoist seal, filled with the aura of Emperor Tao, and a pattern of thunder emerged. In the pattern, the figure of a thunder god with a bird head and a human body appeared, emitting endless destructive and murderous aura. This was an emperor treasure of Thunder Tao. Lin Sun turned his palm and also took out a bronze Taoist seal. It was inconspicuous, but when it appeared, a terrible scene of destruction emerged. There were stars exploding, the sun and the moon turning into powder, mountains and rivers collapsing, and thousands of spirits collapsing. All kinds of strange scenes finally condensed into two ancient Taoist characters. Lifeless. Under the Great Way, there was only death. Boom. The two emperor treasures collided, and the world shook and the universe turned upside down. To the woman's astonishment, her strongest trump card, the Golden Emperor's Tao Lightning Seal, had actually been completely suppressed. It wailed and trembled violently during the collision, and then it escaped her control and was forcefully blasted flying. No, The woman in colorful clothes screamed and tried to escape crazily. But how could she escape? Her graceful and slender body was smashed into a mass of blood by the great way, lifeless seal, and even her spirit was smashed. At this time, Lin Sun had already killed another person. His figure was bathed in the realm of chaos, like a demon. Wherever he passed, the void, dust, and light were all swallowed up. Up to now, there had been no attack that could break the chaotic realm, let alone hurt Lin Sun. How can he be so powerful? Someone felt a chill in his heart and shouted loudly. At this moment, even Kong Zhao showed a look of disbelief, and his face was livid. He knew very well how powerful this opponent was. Otherwise, Zhu Feiyu, Tu Qinjue, and Yin Yuro wouldn't have been defeated one after another. But Kong Zhao was also very confident in his own combat strength, and he had brought many trump cards and life-saving treasures when he came to the forbidden area of ancient immortals. He thought that this time they outnumbered Lin Sun and could easily kill him. But who would have thought that in the real battle, Kong Zhao found that he had underestimated this opponent? Chop! Kong Zhao was completely furious. He waved the golden halberd and chopped at Lin Sun. Lin Sun waved his fist and met it head-on. Clang! In the earth-shattering collision, Kong Zhao's figure shook and he staggered back. His right hand was in pain and numbness. If he hadn't tried his best to resolve it, the golden halberd would have almost flown out of his hand. This blow made Kong Zhao completely understand one thing. In a one-on-one situation, he was definitely not Lin Sun's opponent with his combat strength. This shocked him and made it difficult for him to calm down. Seeing Lin Sun coming at him, Kong Zhao gritted his teeth, and a 3-inch cyan flying sword suddenly flew out from the spiritual platform above his head. The flying sword was engraved with the word Frost. As soon as it appeared, an earth-shattering sword chi spread out, oppressing the nearby void and causing it to explode. This frost flying sword was an emperor's sword. Whoosh! The next moment, it suddenly appeared above Lin Sun's head and chopped down, completely ignoring the obstacles of space. But before Kong Zhao could rejoice, he saw that the frost flying sword was blocked by the chaotic realm of Lin Sun for a moment. All of a sudden, Kong Zhao's eyes almost popped out. He was about to go crazy. That was a real emperor's sword, given by an antique of the primitive Taoism court. It had the power to kill ghosts and split the universe. But now it was blocked by Lin Sun's Tao field. Chapter 2066. Emperor treasures could only be used in the hands of martial emperors in order to unleash their true might. But even so, if an ultimate Saint King took out an emperor artifact, the power it could unleash was unimaginably terrifying. This was like a mortal soldier who had obtained a divine weapon. Naturally, he would be invincible on the battlefield, and with Kong Zhao's current cultivation realm and strength. Although the Emperor's sword he took out was not able to unleash its full might, it was enough to easily kill a martial emperor. But at this moment, Lin Sun used his Dao domain to block the Frost Emperor sword for an instant. This was what shocked Kong Zhao the most. And at this instant, Lin Sun used the Great Dao lifeless seal to resist, and with a loud clang, the 3-inch Frost Emperor sword was blasted away. A wail shook the heavens. Suppress! Kong Zhao's expression was livid, and he slashed with the Frost Emperor sword again, as if he did not believe it. The wonder of this sword was that it could ignore the obstruction of space. It came and went suddenly, and it was unfathomable and untraceable. It was impossible to catch. However, Lin Sun did not care at all. He activated the chaotic Dao domain and used the Great Dao lifeless seal to fight force with force. For a time, the Emperor's sword and the Dao seal clashed, and a terrifying energy fluctuation erupted, causing the heavens and the earth to dim and the void to explode. The Frost Emperor sword was soon unable to hold on any longer, and it clanged under the Great Dao lifeless seal. It wailed incessantly as it retreated. Kong Zhao, who was controlling the Frost Emperor sword, almost coughed up blood. His expression changed drastically, and he did not dare believe his eyes. What emperor treasure was this? How could it be so powerful and terrifying? It should be known that the Frost Emperor sword contained the Emperor Dao laws, and it was branded with the will and sword intent of a sword emperor of the primitive Dao court. It was not ordinary at all. This was also regarded by Kong Zhao as his trump card. But now, the sword was completely suppressed. If the sword emperor of the primitive Dao court saw this, he would definitely be angered to the point of vomiting blood. Die. Suddenly, Lei Feng Tower charged over and similarly used his trump card. He took out a black copper mace and smashed it at Lin's son. Boom! When the copper mace descended, it was like 100,000 mountains pressing down, and it carried boundless Emperor Dao power. Black light flowed, and its imposing manner was extremely shocking. The god chasing truncheon, although it was a damaged, ancient emperor treasure, its might was still terrifying beyond compare. In the blink of an eye, the chaotic field around Lin's son collapsed, and a huge crack appeared. The black copper mace smashed towards Lin's son along the crack. An apricot flag, as light as a feather, appeared in Lin's son's palm. The flag fluttered and fluttered, emitting misty lights. The brilliant Dao glow seemed illusory, but it felt like a peerless sword god had descended upon the world. Every ray of Dao light was like a supreme sword chi that could split the heavens and earth. Chi. As Lin's son shook his wrist, a piece of Taoist light swept out of the apricot yellow flag. At that moment, it was like an unparalleled sword god attacking with the momentum to break the sky. The black copper truncheon was instantly blocked, and then it suddenly trembled. Bang! It was blasted flying by the light of the Dao. How is this possible? Lei Feng Ke was stunned, finding it hard to believe. Two emperor treasures. When Kong Zhao saw the apricot yellow flag in Lin Sun's hand, his heart twitched fiercely. How could Jin Dui have two emperor treasures, and each one was more magical and terrible than the other? Kill him. Let's kill him together. Kong Zhao shouted. He realized that something was wrong. Boom! The battle became more and more intense. Kong Zhao, Lei Feng Ke, and others didn't dare to hide their trump cards at all. They used their trump cards, emperor treasures, or forbidden secret methods. But no matter what kind of secret methods they used, they were all broken by Lin Sun's chaotic field, turning into blazing light rain and annihilated. Even emperor treasures such as Frost Emperor Sword and God-Chasing Mace were suppressed by Lin Sun's lifeless seal and Great Way Flag. Looking from a distance, although he was besieged, he seemed invincible. This made Kong Zhao and others shocked and angry, and they completely realized how difficult and terrible their opponent was this time. Help me! Not long after, a scream of horror rang out. A black-robed man couldn't dodge and was punched by Lin's son. His blood spread like a waterfall, and his body and soul were destroyed. This was the third person killed by Lin's son since the start of the war. In addition to the two people who were killed by Lin's son, with insignificant bow and stinger of sharpness, there were already 5 core disciples of prehistoric Taoism court killed. There were only 108 strong people who entered the forbidden area of ancient immortals this time, and the descendants of primitive Taoist court only accounted for a small part of them. 5 of them were killed at once, which was a serious loss. Even in a colossus like primitive Taoist court, the number of core descendants who had reached the peak of the Holy King realm and were listed on the Holy King list was limited. Every death was an irreparable loss. Damn it, Kong Zhao couldn't calm down at all. He was so angry that he went crazy. His eyes were burning with terrible killing intent. He tried his best to kill Jin Dui without reservation, but it was useless. Because of the death of Lu Dubu and Su Muhan, Lin Sun accumulated endless anger and hatred in his heart. From the beginning of the war, he had no reservation. Emperor treasures? He had them. Trump cards? He also had them. In terms of combat strength, he could single-handedly suppress Zhu Feiyu, Tu Qinjue, Yin Yuro, and the other peerless figures ranked in the top 10 of the All-Heaven Sage King ranking before his Dao domain reached perfection. Now, Lin Sun had successfully condensed the Tao field of chaos and had already deduced his cultivation to the extreme. How could he be afraid of fighting? Kill! His body was like chaos, killing between heaven and earth. His expression was indifferent, without any emotional fluctuations. Only his eyes were surging with monstrous killing intent. In the fierce battle, not only Kong Zhao was under pressure, but the others were also suppressed into a passive position. All of them were in a mess. Before long, Lin Sun suddenly rushed forward. The Tao field of chaos suddenly turned into a big abyss, swallowing all the attacks in the sky. Two descendants of primitive Taoist court were also swallowed. No! Senior Brother Kong, save me, save me. The terrified cries had just resounded when they stopped abruptly. Boom! With the operation of the big abyss, it produced a terrifying annihilation force that obliterated the figures of the two people inch by inch. Their flesh and blood were badly mutilated, and they disappeared in the depths of the big abyss. Seeing this scene, Kong Zhao and others were so terrified that their souls almost came out of their bodies. The scene just now was too horrible and chilling. Let's go. Suddenly, Kong Zhao crushed a strange gray ancient talisman. With a bang, obscure light flowed all over the sky and enveloped them. The next moment, their figures disappeared in the same place. Can we escape? Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and he sensed a little with his divine sense. The next moment, he moved the void and rushed in one direction. The world was restored to its former silence, but everywhere there was a scene of destruction, and the ground was soaked with blood, which was shocking. After a while, a group of figures appeared in this area. The leader was Jing Tiannan, a peerless genius from the scenic Glaze Star Territory. He was dressed in a purple robe, with a dignified appearance, and had the demeanor of a king. This Jin Dui has a terrifying combat strength. He also carries a powerful and unpredictable emperor treasure with him. Ordinary people dare not provoke him at all. The primitive Taoist court has suffered a lot this time. Fortunately, we come from other stars and have no grievances with this Jin Dui, so it's not worthwhile to make enemies with him. Not to make enemies? I'm afraid that's impossible. When fighting for the chaos treasure, how can there not be a life-and-death struggle? Everyone was talking about it. The previous battle had attracted their attention. When they arrived in this area, they were shocked to see the scene of Lin Sun suppressing Kong Zhao and others. Only Jing Tiannan was silent. After a while, he waved his hand. Let's go to Buzhou Mountain. He knew in his heart that the three Taoist courts of Qinquan, Panwu, and Primitive had already reached a unanimous decision to go all out to deal with Lin Sun. Under such circumstances, he was not optimistic about Lin Sun. Of course, the strength of Lin Sun's combat strength also made him feel great threat and pressure, but he was still not optimistic about Lin Sun. Because the Qinquan Taoist court still had Huangfu Xiaono, and the Panwu Taoist court still had Mi Wuya, in the depths of a blood-colored ancient forest. The figures of Kong Zhao and the others appeared. After sensing that there was no danger around them, they all heaved a sigh of relief. But right after that, their expressions became gloomy and unsightly. This time, they had lost too miserably. This damned Jin Dui actually caused the death of 7 of us. He deserves to be ground to ashes. Someone was so angry that his eyes turned red, but were no match for him at all. His combat strength is too terrifying, so terrifying that it makes us feel despair, someone said with a trembling voice. He still had lingering fear when he recalled the bloody scenes from before. He's not Jin Dui, Kong Zhao said word by word, his eyes filled with madness and hatred. He's Lin Sun, the murderer who once turned the world upside down in the Kunlun ruins. We were all deceived. Everyone was stunned as they recalled the past. After the trip to the Kunlun ruins ended, Lin Sun's name resounded on the ancient path of the starry sky almost overnight. Countless great forces were alarmed, and countless powerhouses were shocked. He was regarded as the most wanted criminal in the starry sky. Even some emperor stage figures viewed him as prey because he held the supreme fortune of becoming an emperor stage ancestor in his hands. However, many years had passed, and Lin Sun seemed to have disappeared from the world. No one had heard any news about him. Who would have thought that he would appear with the identity of Jin Dui? If this truth were to spread, the entire heavens would probably be shaken and cause a huge uproar. Isn't Isn't he the successor of the origin returning Dao court? Someone could not help but ask. Kong Zhao sneered. So what if he's the successor of the origin returning Dao court? The moment his identity was exposed, it was destined that the heavens would no longer allow him to live. As he spoke up to hear, he suddenly realized something and muttered, so that's how it is. I understand now. No wonder our prehistoric Dao court, universe, and Panwu Dao court would make a unanimous decision to deal with this fiend. Those old freaks in the sect have probably seen through Jean Di's identity a long time ago. Goldfish will leave for Beijing early in the morning tomorrow to deal with some trivial matters. She will only return next Monday. I will try my best to keep updating, as usual. Chapter 2067. What a pity. Kong Zhao let out a long sigh. So what if they knew Jean Di's identity? So what if they knew that he possessed the opportunity to become an emperor or ancestor? Given the strength of these people, they would not be a match for him even if they joined forces. An indescribable suffocation surged in Kong Zhao's heart. With a flip of his palm, two talismans appeared. One was inscribed with the words Pan Wu, and the other with the words Qianquan. Since I can't have it, I'll destroy you. Kong Zhao clenched his teeth and suddenly crushed the two talismans. Bang! Bang! Two magnificent rays of light soared into the sky. Huangfu Xiaonong led a group of core successors of the Qianquan Dao court through a mountainous region that was shrouded in purple mist. According to the map, we'll reach the hinterland of the ancient immortal forbidden zone in another 2 days. The legendary Mount Buzhou is located there. Huangfu Xiaonong studied an ancient scroll in his hand and said in a low voice, but before that, everyone must be careful. Everyone nodded. Just then, Huangfu Xiaonong was taken aback. With a flip of his palm, a talisman appeared and emitted a blazing brilliance. Then, a wisp of divine sense imprint appeared. After a brief examination, Huangfu Xiaonong's eyes burst with divine light. Jean Di was Lin's son? No wonder, no wonder. He took a deep breath and looked at the others. There's a change of plans. Let's go find Kong Zhao and the others of the primitive Dao court. Why? The others were stunned. Huangfu Xiaonong smiled. We don't know who will be able to snatch the opportunity of Mount Buzhou, but the opportunity to become an emperor or ancestor is right in front of us. Lin's son, so it's that guy. In a silver desert, the white-haired Miwia had also received the news. His eyes, which were as clear as water and as calm as a mirror, were now suffused with a rare, scorching heat. He had long possessed the foundation to become an extreme quasi-emperor. The reason why he had suppressed his cultivation level until now was to enter the ancient immortal forbidden zone and seek a path of extreme transformation. But what would happen after he became a peak quasi-emperor? Of course, it was to prove his Dao and become a martial emperor. The fortuitous encounter in the Kunlun ruins has existed since ancient times. Countless peerless figures have been attracted to fight for it, but you're the only one who obtained it. Perhaps it's because you're blessed, but since I've encountered it, Mi Wuya chuckled silently. Then let's see who's qualified to obtain this opportunity. He turned around and looked at the others from the Panwu Dao court, saying, I'm going to look for Jean Dui. Do all of you want to come with me? No one objected. In the Panwu Dao court, Mi Wuya was the soul of the core inheritors, and no one dared to defy his will. All right, let's go then. Mi Wuya nodded and walked forward with his hands behind his back. His clothes were whiter than snow, and his hair was white like frost. Deep within the scarlet ancient forest, Kong Zhao waited quietly. He had already sent out the news, and he was extremely confident that when Huangfu Xiaonong and Mi Wuya found out about Lin Sun's identity, they would definitely come. Senior brother Kong Zhao, are we just going to wait like this? Someone asked. This was an ancient immortal forbidden area, and danger and killing intent were everywhere. The ancient blood-red forest that they were currently in seemed to be safe, but who could be sure that no accidents would occur as time passed? Are you going to throw your life away? Kong Zhao said coldly. I only have one life-saving talisman on me, and I've already used it. What if something happens if we leave this place now? The others fell silent. Everyone could tell that Kong Zhao's state of mind was terrible, and it made sense. They had gathered the strength of everyone, yet they were forced to flee by Jean Dui alone. Who will be in a good mood? Someone took a deep breath and said, if Jean Dui finds his place. So what if he does? Kong Zhao said resolutely, and his expression turned gloomy. Could it be that you've been scared out of your wits by him? Everyone looked at each other, and none of them dared to say a word. Twang! It was also at this moment that the ear-piercing sound of a bowstring tearing through the air resounded like thunder in the depths of the silent ancient forest. Oh no! The primeval Dao court inheritors' expressions changed as they sensed a fatal danger approaching, and they dodged into the distance without hesitation. Bang! The place they were at just now was blasted into pieces by an arrow, and the nearby ancient trees transformed into ash while an unfathomably deep hole was chiseled open in the ground. At the same time, a cry of pain resounded. An primeval Dao court disciple was grazed by an arrow while dodging, causing the flesh on his back to be torn open, causing blood to flow while his bones were exposed. It's Jean Dui. It was he who killed Junior Brother Wang with a divine arrow. Lai Feng Tower cried out loudly and revealed a panicked expression. In an instant, the expressions of everyone changed. Jean Dui actually pursued us here? He really has come. Kong Zhao gnashed his teeth, and his voice was filled with resentment. A consonance Dao talisman floated up into appearance in his palm, and it captured an unusual aura that was approaching from extremely far away at a shocking speed. However, Kong Zhao didn't expect that Lin Sun would come so fast. Let's go. Kong Zhao couldn't be bothered to wait for Mi Wuya and Huangfu Xiaonong, and he led Lai Feng Tower and the others to flee at full speed. Swoosh! While they were fleeing, another arrow shot towards them. It was strange, fleeting, and incredibly fast. Following that, a blood-curdling scream rang out. The expert whose back had been torn apart while he was dodging was not so lucky this time. His throat was slit by the sword. Junior Brother Li, Kong Zhao, and the others cried out in grief and indignation. In the blink of an eye, another person died on their side. This kind of bloody death blow almost drove them crazy. However, their speed of escape was not slow. All of them were almost desperate, lest they follow in the footsteps of death. In the bloody ancient forest, Lin Sun's figure flickered at a moderate speed. After putting away the blue sky arrow and Emoli arrow he shot earlier, he continued to chase after them. His expression was neither sad nor happy, and it was terrifyingly calm. His state of mind had always been in a wonderful state, ethereal, clear, and calm as snow. He could clearly feel his anger, hatred, and killing intent, but all these emotions were only reflected in his state of mind and could not cause any ripples in it. My body is boiling, my hatred is burning, and my heart is as clear as a mirror. This time, Lin Sun would never let Kong Zhao and the others go. Never. Rushing out of the bloody ancient forest, Kong Zhao and the others fled with all their strength by teleporting in the void like crazy. However, everyone was very uneasy, anxious, depressed, and nervous, but also extremely angry and aggrieved. When had they been treated like this? He was in a sorry state and was panicking like a dog. Senior Brother Kong Zhao, where should we escape to? Someone asked anxiously. The shadow of death lingered in their hearts, making them all bear great pressure. To Buzhou Mountain, Kong Zhao hissed. Only by going to Buzhou Mountain could they end this chase, because there would be many strong people there. At that time, would Jean Di? No, Lin Sun still dare to chase them like this? What was more, Mi Wuya and Huangfu Xiaonong must be on their way. As long as they persisted for a while, they would definitely be able to solve the current predicament. Bang! However, it didn't take long for the thunderous roar of the bowstring to resound between heaven and earth again. What was even faster than the sound was a peerlessly dazzling arrow, and it was wrapped in a dazzling glow of the Tao as it tore through the sky. Kong Zhao and others felt their scalps numb, and their souls almost came out of their bodies. While dodging with all their strength, they all used secret methods and treasures to defend themselves. Boom! In the deafening roar, a successor of the primitive Taoist court, was severely shaken away. He saw stars in front of his eyes, and the blood in his body was tumbling. He didn't die. It was the golden armor he wore that blocked the arrow. But when he came to his senses and wanted to continue to escape, he found a tall figure blocking the way. Kong Zhao and others had already fled far away and had no intention of helping him at all. Great calamity befell everyone. An indescribable feeling of despair and panic surged in his heart. He let out a beast-like roar and rushed to Lin's son. "Jin Di, I'll fight with you." Before he finished speaking, he stopped abruptly. His head was twisted off by Lin's son and thrown aside casually. Blood spurted high from his neck. Bang! When Lin's son left, his headless body fell to the ground. Senior brother Kong Zhao, "There are only 3 of us left." In the distance, Lei Feng Tower, who was fleeing, shouted with disheveled hair. His voice seemed to be crying, full of endless grief and indignation, but also a kind of unconcealable panic. Kong Zhao gnashed his teeth and said angrily, "Hold on for a while, and we will definitely be saved." In fact, he was also in a mess. At the beginning, he regarded Lin Sun as prey, talking and laughing, thinking that victory was in his grasp. He even killed Lu Dubu and Su Muhan in front of Lin's son. He was indescribably proud and conceited. He was the core successor of the primitive Taoist court, the 5th on the Holy King list, and the most dazzling star of a young generation of the Imperial Kong family. But at this time, he was as embarrassed as a stray dog. He could only flee all the way and watch his companions die in horror one by one. This feeling tortured Kong Zhao to the point of collapse. He even regretted fighting against Lin's son so rashly. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. Bang! After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the familiar sound of bowstring vibrating resounded once more, and it was like the note of death that came from hell. This time, there was only one person left by Kong Zhao and Thunderwind Tower's side, and he was annihilated as well. This person's treasures, Taoist magic, and even his own defensive power were like paper. They couldn't resist the power of the arrow at all. His body was directly penetrated and exploded in the air. From a distance, it was like a scarlet firework blooming in the air. Chapter 2068. Lei Gale Tower roared hysterically as if he was venting. He completely lost his composure. He was frightened. One by one, his fellow disciples were killed on the way. The bloody impact of death made Lei Gale Tower so frightened that he was on the verge of collapse. "If we don't escape, we will only die faster." Kong Zhao's voice seemed to be squeezed out of his teeth. His face was livid and ferocious. He was also extremely aggrieved and panicked. Unlike Lei Gale Tower, he could still keep a trace of calmness. Why do we have to provoke such a murderer? Lei Gale Tower lost his soul. It was not easy to cultivate. He had paid a lot of blood, sweat, and effort to have today's achievements on the road of cultivation. Who would be willing to die like this? Bang! The familiar sound of bow and arrow sounded again. It was just a sound, but it made Lei Gale Tower, who had long been frightened, tremble all over. He hissed, "I surrender, don't kill me, don't." Obviously, he had completely collapsed. He didn't care about any fighting spirit or dignity. He just wanted to live. But before he finished his words with a bang, an arrow pierced his body, and the blood sprayed several feet high. "I really don't want to die." In a voice of unwillingness and horror, Lei Gale Tower exploded, and his flesh and blood flew everywhere. Kong Zhao didn't look back from beginning to end. He fled far away. He had enough strength to save Lei Gale Tower, but he knew that once he did so, it would only delay his own escape. It was not that he was ruthless, but that he had long seen that Lei Gale Tower's state of mind was broken. Even if he was saved, his cultivation was doomed to dissipate. Whoosh! Lin Sun appeared at the place where Lei Gale Tower died. He waved his sleeves and put away his relics, and then chased after Kong Zhao again. In his hand, the insignificance bow exuded a frightening and fierce aura. Jin Di is Lin's son. He has the fortune of becoming an emperor or ancestor. Whoever can kill him can get it. Along the way, Kong Zhao kept shouting and repeating this sentence, and the sound waves spread far away. He couldn't care about anything else. He was the only one left, which made him feel desperate and in urgent need of help. Lin Sun, who was chasing after him, looked indifferent. In this forbidden area of ancient immortals, he had no fear of anyone. Where is he? Are they all dead? A bunch of trash. Are you all scared out of your wits after knowing Jin Dui's true identity? He roared as he fled, but no one interfered. This caused Kong Zhao to be on the verge of going mad, and he felt an unprecedented sense of helplessness. In the outside world, with his identity as a core descendant of the primordial Dao court, who would dare to offend him? But at this moment, he was being chased to the point of almost going crazy. If anyone were to see this scene, they would probably not dare to believe their eyes. Bang! The sound of the bowstring vibrating could be heard again. Kong Zhao, who sensed a fatal threat, did not hesitate to take out the Frost Emperor's sword and block the arrow that was shot out of the blue. Bang! The sword and arrow collided, and divine splendor splashed everywhere. The peerlessly terrifying impact sent the Frost Emperor's sword flying. Kong Zhao staggered and glanced at the Frost Emperor's sword with a pained expression. In the end, he gave up decisively and fled. Lin Sun appeared and took out the Great Way bottomless pagoda. With a loud bang, he took the Frost Monarch's sword and suppressed it in the pagoda. At the same time, he drew the insignificant bow and shot another arrow. In the distance, Kong Zhao's figure was shot, bursting with a monstrous divine brilliance. It turned out that the silver-white armor covering his body had blocked the blow. However, the terrible impact shook Kong Zhao like a kite with a broken string. He flew out fiercely with blood spurting from his mouth and nose. He found it unbelievable. With his strength, he couldn't avoid the arrow. There was only one explanation. The bow and arrow in Lin Sun's hand was also an emperor treasure. Lin Sun, there are a lot of old monsters waiting for you outside. If you kill me, even if you can leave alive, you will suffer when you walk out of the forbidden ancient immortal area. As Kong Zhao roared, his figure actually transformed into a multicolored peacock. He spread his wings and tore through space as he teleported, and his speed was even faster than before. Bang! What answered him was Lin Sun's arrow, which shot out at an incredible speed like a rainbow, piercing through the sun. The five-color divine light flowed around Kong Zhao's body. With a fierce sweep, the arrow was shaken and stagnated. Taking advantage of this gap, Kong Zhao avoided the disaster and fled frantically again. Lin Sun, as long as you let me go once, I swear that I will never be your enemy in this life. What do you think? He shouted. Lin Sun still ignored him, and his fingertips continued to pull the blood-red bowstring. Bang! 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 Lin Sun shot out the blue arrow, the muley arrow, the auspicious light arrow, and the feather arrow in one breath. Kong Zhao's face changed completely. The five-colored feathers covering his whole body seemed to be burning, bursting out bright and colorful light to resist with all his strength. Bang! The Jadefall arrow arrived, causing the five-color divine radiance to tremble violently. Then the other three arrows came. The brilliant five-color divine light suddenly couldn't stand it and burst into pieces. Kong Zhao screamed in pain. His body was pierced by two arrows and fell directly from the void. He had no chance to escape. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure moved over. His black eyes were deep and indifferent. He looked down at Kong Zhao, who fell to the ground, bathed in blood and extremely embarrassed. Lin Sun gently spat out 3 words. Is it exciting? Lin Sun's words made Kong Zhao feel ashamed and resentful. Before, after killing Lu Dubu and Su Muhan, he had asked Lin Sun in a joking and complacent tone whether he felt very exciting. Now, Lin Sun was humiliating and trampling on him in the same way. Don't worry, I won't let you die like this. As Lin Sun spoke, he waved his sleeve and completely confined Kong Zhao's body. What do you want to do? Kong Zhao was so angry that his eyes were bleeding. Lin Sun said indifferently, I heard that the pure-blooded descendants of the imperial Kong family are born with five-colored feathers, which can release mysterious five-colored divine light. So, I plan to pluck your feathers first. The blue veins on Kong Zhao's forehead bulged, and he kept coughing up blood. What did this guy think he was? A rare, divine material? In addition, I haven't tasted the peacock meat of a peerless Saint King, so I don't know how it tastes. When he heard Lin Sun's words, Kong Zhao was dumbfounded as if he had been struck by lightning. Did this guy still regard him as food? He roared angrily. Lin Sun, you will die a horrible death. Wait and see whether you can get out of the forbidden area of ancient immortals or not. You are doomed to die. Really? I only know that you will die before me. Now, I will send you to reunite with your ancestor. You'd better ask him how to cook the peacock meat to be the most delicious. Lin Sun took out the Tower of Endless Tao and suppressed Kong Zhao in it. Until he was suppressed, Kong Zhao still didn't understand what Lin Sun meant. What did he mean by reuniting with his ancestor? I thought that I could finally see my descendants come to save me before I die. Who would have thought that it turned out to be a useless thing? An extremely weak and old voice resounded in the great Tao bottomless tower. It was filled with endless disappointment and hatred. Kong Zhao raised his eyes and saw that not far from him, there was a ball of incomparably bright five-color divine light being suppressed. But even so, the aura emitted by the five-color divine light was still extremely terrifying, containing the supreme power of the Imperial Realm Law. Who are you? Kong Zhao was surprised and doubtful. You are really a good-for-nothing. You don't even recognize your ancestor. The weak voice grew more and more disappointed, and there was a feeling of despair. You are the ancestor? Kong Zhao was stunned. The ancestor of Kong family was the famous demon king Du Tian in primitive times, ranked first among the 7 demon kings. Who in the world didn't know him? However, Kong Zhao never thought that he would see the ancestor when he was suppressed. This was incredible. Then, an indescribable ecstasy surged in Kong Zhao's heart. He cried, "Ancestor, save me, save me. You're not only a good-for-nothing, but also an idiot." There was a touch of sadness in the voice of the Demon King Du Tian. There was nothing sadder than a dead heart. Kong Zhao was stunned. After a while, he suddenly came to his senses. His expression changed greatly. "Ancestor, why are you here? Are you also—" Speaking of this, Kong Zhao's soul almost came out of his body. He had roughly concluded that his ancestor had suffered the same treatment as himself. How was this possible? Was there a treasure in this world that could suppress the ancestor? Who on earth was Lin Sun? Why were the treasures in his hands more terrifying than the previous one? I don't have much time left. Is it fate that I meet a junior like you at the moment of my death? The voice of the Demon King, Du Tian, sounded. Fine, let's take a gamble. If I succeed, I can be reborn in your body. If I fail, I will die. Kong Zhao was shocked and asked, "Ancestor, what are you going to do?" However, what answered him was a dazzling and boundless five-color divine radiance that drowned his entire body. His soul. "No, don't," Kong Zhao roared. He finally realized that this ancestor of his actually wanted to possess a junior like him. But in just a moment, his consciousness and spirit were completely crushed. His body was occupied by the Demon King Du Tian, which was equivalent to a complete death. This was undoubtedly the cruelest way to die. It was not much different from killing one's own flesh and blood. My boy, you should be proud of your death if you can do something for your ancestor, right? Ha! I made it. Finally, I have a chance of survival before I die. Guyupu, when I recover, I will kill all the evils of Mount Heart in the world. Kong Zhao laughed. But at this moment, Kong Zhao had already become a different person. His whole body was full of a domineering aura that could shock the world. Bang! A ray of golden Tao light appeared and pressed down on Kong Zhao. He screamed miserably and fell to the ground, twitching as if having an epileptic seizure. At the same time, Lin Sun's voice sounded in the Tower of Endless Way. Chapter 2069. What happened in the Tower of Endless Tao had long been seen by Lin Sun. Lin Sun was shocked when he saw that the demon emperor still had the power to possess Kong Zhao, even though he was completely suppressed. It was no exaggeration to say that if it were Lin Sun instead of Kong Zhao, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, Lin Sun also noticed that Solitary Sky Demon Emperor's aura was extremely dim after the possession. Even Lin Sun could easily destroy him with the power of the Tower of Endless Way. Young man, what do you mean by losing the power to fight back before death? Although I've been suppressed here, I'm not someone who can be killed by just anyone. Kong Zhao took a deep breath and sneered. Don't forget that Gu Yupu suppressed me for nearly 100,000 years, but he couldn't do anything to me in the end. Crack! A golden Tao light lashed on Solitary Sky Demon Emperor like a divine whip, making him break out in a cold sweat. However, he gritted his teeth and endured it. He squeezed out a stiff smile and said, "Go ahead. The more you torture me now, the more miserable the remaining demons of Fengsuan Mountain will die in the future." His voice was calm but frightening. This was a Zhu Xiao who had become an emperor long before the immemorial era. As the leader of the 7 demonic emperors, he was naturally not an ordinary emperor realm cultivator. His words naturally carried great weight and were unquestionable. Since you're young and don't understand the power of an emperor, I can give you a chance to turn over a new leaf. If you cooperate, I can even bestow you with supreme fortune. Solitary Sky Demon Emperor's voice carried a hint of temptation. For example, I can impart all my skills to you so that you can wield the power to shake the heavens. Every word presented a kind of charm of great way. It was as if flowers were falling from the sky, containing enough power to make all living beings bow down to worship and submit to it. It was said that when an Emperor Buddha with Bodhisattva fruit expounded on great way, there would be a phenomenon of golden lotus on the tongue and heavenly flowers falling from the sky that resonated with heaven and earth and all living beings. Right now, Solitary Sky Demon Emperor's voice carried a strange power that floated above Lin Sun's heart. This made Du Tian Demon Monarch sigh with emotion. When he was at his peak, he was able to make some martial monarchs submit to him with just a few words. Who would have thought that after countless years, he would have to use such a method to subdue a junior that he would not have paid any attention to in the past? A dragon trapped in the shallows is nothing more than this. Demonic the Archdutian couldn't suppress his killing intent at the thought of this. Gu Yupu, if I don't purge the remnants of Mount Fengsuan with blood after I break free, then I won't be able to live up to all the sufferings I've suffered in the past countless years. The Solitary Sky Demonic the Arch suddenly felt that something was amiss. Why wasn't this kid reacting at all after hearing his words? At the same time, Lin Sun's voice sounded. The way of music can attack people's hearts. But you, old thing, are already dying. How dare you plot against me? You're asking to be humiliated. His voice was filled with undisguised mockery. Boom! Along with Lin Sun's voice, streaks of golden Tao light struck down at the demonic Thearch like wildly dancing whips. The demonic Thearch's skin was lacerated and his head was bleeding. He rolled on the ground, twitching and screaming. Little bastard, why aren't you hurt at all? The demonic Archdutian was furious and incredulous. My heart is like a saber that can cut the sun, moon, ghosts, and gods. How can I be affected by your decadent voice? Lin Sun sneered. In fact, he was also in a cold sweat. When he heard the words of the demonic Archdutian, his consciousness was in a trance and his state of mind was shaken. He almost fell into demonic Thearch's trap. Fortunately, he had wandered in the ancient immortal forbidden area a few days ago. His state of mind had been further tempered and sublimated by the method of defining mountains and rivers, which counteracted the power of the demonic Archdutian. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. This also made Lin Sun more aware of the terrible power of the Emperor realm. The demonic Archdutian had been suppressed by Gu Yupu for nearly 100,000 years. It wouldn't be long before his original spirit would be obliterated by the Tower of Endless Way. But in such a weak situation, The demonic the Archduchian could still possess Kong Zhao and plot against Lin Sun. This was too terrible. Bang! After being whipped by the golden Dao light for a while, the body of Kong Zhao that Kong Dutian had painstakingly seized burst into pieces and turned into a pool of flesh and blood. His original spirit was imprisoned and suppressed again. It was eroded by the power of the Tower of Endless Way and became illusory and blurred. He couldn't even speak. It seems that it won't take long for this old thing to be completely refined. Lin Sun speculated. Lin Sun didn't care about this anymore. He put away the Tower of Endless Way and looked around. Then, he turned around and disappeared from this vast world. Brother Liu, Brother Su, I have avenged you. On the way, Lin Sun murmured softly in his heart. This battle lasted for more than 2 hours. 12 core descendants of the primitive Taoist court, including Kong Zhao and Leifeng Tower, were killed one after another. Such a record was dazzling enough to shock the world. But Lin Sun was not happy at all. Even if he killed Kong Zhao and others, so what? Liu Dubu and Su Muhan died after all. I have to find a place to recover. Lin Sun took a deep breath, suppressed the chaotic thoughts in his heart, and felt the consumption of his strength. A sense of crisis arose spontaneously. In the previous battle, he won easily, but the frequent use of insignificant Bao also consumed a lot of his physical strength. If it weren't for the fact that he had reached the peerless Saint King realm and had a strong cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. However, before leaving, Lin Sun suddenly glanced around and said, "You'd better disperse, lest you make a mistake." After saying that, he lifted his foot and walked forward. In a nearby area, there were many auras lurking in the dark. Hearing this, they couldn't calm down. They had witnessed everything. They didn't need to think to know that the death of Kong Zhao and others would be earth-shattering and cause endless storms. Such a bloody event couldn't be covered up at all. It would inevitably spread out as soon as possible. The people of the primitive Taoist court besieged Jin Dui, but they were mercilessly slaughtered. It was bound to cause a great disturbance. If Jin Dui is really Lin Sun, doesn't it mean that he has a good fortune to become an emperor or an ancestor for the Kunlun ruins? Don't think about it. Didn't you see that Kong Zhao and others were killed? Whether Jin Dui is Lin Sun or not, no one can provoke him. But why do I feel that after this battle, Jin Dui has lost a lot of energy? If we catch up with him now, we could get a big bargain. In the dark, all kinds of discussions sounded. Some people chose to retreat and left. Even if there was a great opportunity, they had to be alive to fight for it. They knew that they were no match for Lin Sun, so they wisely retreated. Some people were indecisive and hesitant. Some people followed quietly. Those who entered the ancient immortal forbidden area this time were all top-notch saint kings in the world. How could some conceited people be scared off by few words? Lin Sun also noticed this scene. He frowned slightly, ignored it, and continued moving forward. Jin Dui, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Why don't you stay for a while and let's have a chat? Finally, someone couldn't help but appear from a distance. This was a genius from another world in the starry sky. He was wearing a purple jade armor and a starry rainbow crown. He was extremely extraordinary. Lin Sun still ignored him. The young man's face darkened, and he said, "It seems that you've really consumed a lot of energy and can't hold on any longer. Why don't you even dare to speak?" A Taoist sword quietly appeared in his hand. But at this moment, Lin Sun turned around, drew his bow, and shot an arrow. The 3 movements were almost done in one go. Bang! The blue sky arrow shot out, like a cold light, suddenly appearing in the sky. The young man's expression changed abruptly. He didn't expect Lin Sun to attack without saying a word. He dodged without hesitation, not daring to face it head-on. He had seen the scene of Kong Zhao and the others being killed, and he knew very well how terrifying Lin Sun's bow and arrow was. Ah! A scream rang out. In the void thousands of feet away from the young man, a figure suddenly appeared, torn apart, and blood rained down. Witnessing this scene, the young man in purple jade armor broke out in a cold sweat. Obviously, This person had been hiding and wanted to attack Lin Sun in secret. Unexpectedly, he was killed by Lin Sun with a single arrow. If you follow me again, you'll end up like him. Lin Sun said this, turned around, and continued moving forward. The expression of the young man in purple jade armor fluctuated. He watched Lin Sun's figure disappear, and in the end, he didn't dare to chase after him. In the dark, the experts who were following Lin Sun like the young man also extinguished the idea of attacking him at this moment. Not long after, Mi Wuya's group, as well as Huangfu Xiaonong's group, who came from different areas, also learned that Kong Yu and the others were killed. For a moment, all of them were surprised and shocked. Kong Zhao, Lei Feng Tower, and the others joined forces, but they were killed one by this boy. His combat strength is too terrifying. Huangfu Xiaonong's expression was uncertain. The successors of the Universe Taoism court near him were also surprised and felt it was incredible. Someone said in a trembling voice, "According to the news, this boy has more than one emperor weapon, especially the bow and arrow in his hand. Its power is boundlessly terrifying, and anyone who is locked on by it has no chance of survival." Senior brother Huangfu, do we still chase after him? Huangfu Xiaonong snorted coldly. Of course, why not? Even if he has heaven-defying power and amazing treasures, I'm afraid he has already been severely exhausted after a fierce battle. This is the best time to kill him. Let's go. With that, Huangfu Xiaonong took the lead to take action. This time, he rushed over as soon as he got the news. What he wanted was the supreme fortune of becoming an emperor or ancestor in Lin Sun's hands. Unlike the chaos treasure that was still hidden somewhere, this was an opportunity that could be seized now. Chapter 2070. When Mi Wuya learned of Lin Sun's accomplishments, he was merely stunned for a moment before his limpid eyes lit up with an astonishing luster. This boy is worthy of being my peer. Mi Wuya smiled after saying that. It was a smile that came from the bottom of his heart, a smile that the other successors of the Panwu Dao court had never seen before. Because in their impression, Mi Wuya had always been a person who did not care about worldly affairs. He was like a wild crane with no worries, and no concerns. He even gave off a feeling of loneliness, and loneliness at the top. But the current Mi Wuya was so different. It was as if he had finally found a soulmate after being lonely for thousands of years. It was a joy that came from the inside out. Senior brother, are we still going after him? Someone asked Mi Wuya the same question. I want to have a fair fight with him. This isn't the right time. Let him go. Mi Wuya said leisurely. No one was more aware than him of how desolate it was to stand at the peak of the same cultivation realm without a single worthy opponent in sight. To Mi Wuya, the most joyful thing on the path of the great Tao was nothing more than these words: meeting one's match, meeting one's talent. And now, Lin Sun's performance finally made Mi Wuya feel that he was not alone and that he had an enemy. Let's go. I need to prepare. Mi Wuya turned around with a smile. He had not prepared for a battle for a long time because he had never met a true opponent in the 600 years he dominated the All Heavens King Sage board. Jin Dui, I don't want the opportunity to become an emperor or ancestor. I just want to defeat. Mi Wuya said softly in his heart. Everyone looked at each other. It was the first time they saw Mi Wuya value an opponent so much, and this opponent was someone they did not expect, Jin Dui, in the outside world. On one side of Cloud Mountain, 7 days had passed since the opening of the ancient immortal Forbidden Zone. At this moment, Taishu Hong, Xia Xinglia, the Fire Spirit Empress, and other emperors were sitting in the void, discussing the profound Tao. There was a table in front of each of them. Numerous bronze lamps that emanated a miraculous fluctuation were placed on the table. These were the life lamps of the successors of their respective sections. The fact that the fate lamp was still lit meant that the inheritor of the ancient immortal Forbidden Zone was still alive. The extinguishing of the life lamp represented death. During these 7 days, the fate lamp would occasionally extinguish, and it would attract the attention of everyone present. The great figure in charge of the fate lamp would either have a gloomy expression or a sorrowful expression. Only the martial emperors from the 6 Dao courts and the 10 war clans remained calm. This was because the life lamps of their heirs had never been extinguished in the past 7 days. According to my calculations, those youngsters will definitely be able to enter Mount Buzhou within half a month. Someone deduced. The successor of the Gui Yuan Dao court, Jin Dui, doesn't even have a life lamp. I wonder if he is still alive. The primordial Dao court's Juyan Battle Emperor suddenly spoke. Just these words alone caused the expressions of all the great figures to become slightly complicated. Jin Dui, the successor of the Gui Yuan Dao court. However, those who knew the inside story were clearly aware that this was nothing more than a pretense. In reality, this kid had become the eye of a storm since long ago. Don't worry, he will definitely live longer than you, Xia Xinglia said leisurely. The Jian Battle Emperor sneered. Xia Xinglia, be careful not to be too confident and slap yourself in the face in the end. Xia Xinglia frowned and didn't say anything in the end. In the past 7 days, he had been keenly aware that the atmosphere outside was not right. No matter who it was, anyone who mentioned Jin Dui would have a subtle reaction. It seems that something is wrong, Xia Xinglia calculated silently. With his current realm, it was not difficult for him to predict good or bad luck. It was not impossible for him to deduce some truths. However, when he deduced this time, he was shocked. He couldn't deduce anything about Lin Sun. It was as if there were countless shadows shrouding Lin Sun's affairs, which were full of endless variables. Sure enough, there is something wrong. In the depths of Xia Xinglia's eyes, there was a terrible light of Tao. He stood up and said, "Everyone, I have to leave for a few days. When I return, I will talk with you about Tao." "Why are you leaving?" The Jian Battle Emperor pretended to be surprised. "Brother Xia, why don't you stay here and see whether Jin Dui is dead or alive?" Xia Xinglia's eyes flickered. When he was about to say something, he saw, on the table in front of the Jian Battle Emperor, a life lamp suddenly went out. The smile of the Jian Battle Emperor suddenly froze. He recognized that this life lamp belonged to Wang Zong, the core descendant of the primitive Taoist court. "Haha, Jian, you'd better worry about the descendants of the primitive Taoist court." Xia Xinglia suddenly burst into laughter. The other emperors present were also surprised. It was only the 7th day since they entered the ancient immortal forbidden area, but the core descendant of the primitive Taoist court was killed in it. It should be known that each of these core descendants was unparalleled. Even if only one of them died, it would be a big blow to the primitive Taoist court. The ancient immortal forbidden area is so dangerous that it is normal to have deaths. I never said that the descendants of the primitive Taoist court would not be in any danger. Taking a deep breath, the Jian Battle Emperor said calmly. However, just as he finished speaking, one of the life lamps on the table went out. This time, everyone's gazes were attracted, and they revealed strange expressions. Xia Xinglia could not help but laugh. It seems that the descendants of the primitive Taoist court are in great danger. The Jian Battle Emperor snorted coldly. It's just the loss of 2 descendants. The primitive Taoist court can still bear it. There's no need for you, Xia Xinglia, to say such sarcastic words. He was also very depressed. In the other Dao courts, the life lamps had not been extinguished yet. Only the primitive Taoist court had 2 extinguished one after another. Xia Xinglia sat back down and said with a smile, "I don't want to leave for the time being. I want to see how many descendants of the primitive Taoist court will lose." "You!" The Jian Battle Emperor was so angry that he wanted to tear Xia Xinglia's mouth apart. How could he speak like that? However, before he could speak, another lamp on the table went out. This time, everyone was shocked. What kind of danger did the descendants of the primitive Taoist court encounter in the ancient celestial forbidden area? They actually lost 3 people at once? Xia Xinglia stopped laughing and said with a pained expression, "Sigh, 3 core descendants who have a chance of becoming emperors in the future are gone just like that. Could it be that the heavens are jealous of geniuses?" The Jian Battle Emperor's face darkened. However, in the following period of time, the life lamp on his table seemed to have been attacked by a strong wind and began to show signs of extinguishing. 4 lamps, 5 lamps, 6 lamps. The atmosphere started to become oppressive. All the emperors gasped and their expressions changed. What happened in the ancient celestial forbidden area? Why did the descendants of the primitive Taoist court suffer such a serious blow? Was this a man-made disaster or a natural disaster? At this moment, the Juyin battle emperor's pupils dilated and his old face stiffened. He looked at the table in front of him in disbelief, as if he was possessed. Indescribable anger and confusion surged in his heart. How is this possible? The primitive Taoist court had made ample preparations for this trip to the ancient celestial forbidden area. They had prepared all kinds of methods for the descendants to avoid danger. But yet, he still encountered such a great disaster. What had happened? If it was a natural disaster, it's impossible for them to die one after another. After all, those descendants aren't stupid. How could they not retreat after realizing that something was wrong? Tai Shuhong pondered. In my opinion, this is most likely a man-made disaster. Man-made disaster? The Jian battle emperor's eyes flickered, and he became more and more furious. Could it be that the descendants of some great force were targeting the primitive Taoist court? As time passed, the life lamp on the table in front of the Jian battle emperor continued to extinguish. Every time a lamp was extinguished, the atmosphere here would become a bit more oppressive, making all the emperor-level figures feel a bit shocked. In the end, even Xia Xinglia was moved, revealing a strange expression. This was clearly a killing operation targeting the descendants of the primitive Taoist court. Why is this happening? Who can tell the seat who did this? The Juyin battle emperor was completely enraged. His face was gloomy and his gaze was terrifying. Everyone was silent. Even with their abilities, they couldn't see through what happened in the ancient immortal forbidden zone. Who could know the truth? Could it be Jean Duyi's doing? The fire spirit empress suddenly said. Only she, Battle Emperor Jian, and Emperor Cloudy Rock of the Panwu Dao court knew that the successors of the Qinquan, Primeval, and Panwu Dao courts would work together to deal with Jean Duyi in the ancient immortal forbidden zone. If a conflict broke out, their opponent would most likely be Jean Duyi. After all, among the experts that entered the ancient immortal forbidden zone, the descendants of the mysterious Yellow Dao court and the Demon's Dao court would definitely not risk everything to start conflict with them. As for those monstrous geniuses from other worlds, who would deliberately provoke the descendants of the primitive Taoist court. As for the experts from the various provinces, they could be completely ignored. Not to mention provoking them. They probably didn't even have the guts to fight against the descendants of the primitive Taoist court. Thus, it seemed that Jean Duyi was the only one left. Impossible, the Jian battle emperor denied without hesitation. How could a little guy like him be a match for the descendants of the primitive Taoist court? But don't forget that in the mysterious Yellow Secret Realm, he was able to defeat the joint attack of Zhu Feiyu, Tu Qinjue, and others by himself. The Fire Spirit Empress reminded. Her words made all the emperors present look strange. They also remembered the scene when Zhu Feiyu, Tu Qinjue, and others were defeated. Thinking of this, they really suspected that these things were done by Lin's son. At this time, the Juyin battle emperor was completely stunned and couldn't say a word. His eyes were filled with terrible coldness and killing intent. Chapter 2071. Kong Zhao was dead. There was a strange silence in the atmosphere, and the emperors could not calm down. Kong Zhao was the pillar of the core descendants of the primitive Dao court. He was ranked 5th on the Holy King list and was well known in the heavens. But now he had also died in the ancient immortal forbidden area. Who would believe it? It should be known that core descendants like Kong Zhao often had many life-saving means, such as magical emperor treasures, forbidden secret methods, and so on. But under such circumstances, Kong Zhao died on the 7th day of the operation in the ancient immortal forbidden area. Not to mention the Juyin War Emperor. Even the other emperors felt that it was incredible. Bang! The table in front of the Juyin War Emperor exploded and turned into debris. His face was as gloomy as water, and his whole body was surging with a terrible violent aura, as if he would go berserk at any time. As soon as Kong Zhao died, there was no successor of the primitive Dao court in the ancient, immortal forbidden area. The blow was so great that the Juyin War Emperor was almost unable to bear it. But Xia Xinglia added fuel to the fire and comforted him. Brother Jian, don't be too sad. It's the ancient immortal forbidden area. How could there be no danger? Everyone looked strange, because these words were originally said by the Juyin War Emperor, but now they were mentioned by Xia Xinglia again. The blue veins on the Juyin War Emperor's forehead were bulging, and his chest was heaving up and down. He looked at Xia Xinglia as if he wanted to kill him. However, Xia Xinglia seemed to be completely unaware of it as he sighed and said, "However, speaking of which, your prehistoric Dao court's losses this time are indeed too tragic. There were only a total of 12 successors who had the qualifications to enter the ancient immortal forbidden area, but now, all of them were wiped out." His words were full of regret, disappointment, and emotion. When the Juyin War Emperor heard it, it was like a sharp knife stabbing into his heart, making him completely angry. He pointed at Xia Xinglia and said word by word, "Xia Xinglia, I know you are determined to protect Jindui. I hope you won't regret it when the operation in the ancient immortal forbidden area comes to an end." Xia Xinglia narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, there was something wrong. According to Juyin's words, whoever had a relationship with Lin Sun would be unlucky, which was too abnormal. It seems that I have to inquire about the news. It's really uncomfortable to be kept in the dark. Xia Xinglia stood up and left. No one asked him to stay, and no one stopped him. Ancient immortal forbidden zone. Within a swamp that was suffused with mist, numerous strange mountains and rocks were laid out, and it was mysterious and horrifying. In Lin Sun's palm, there was a black jade plate shaped like a turtle shell. The light and shadow on the jade plate were changing, and a pointer was rotating in the air, guiding the way. He had obtained this treasure after killing the rainbow-clothed woman by the Thunderwind Tower's side. It could be used to seek fortune, avoid calamity, and guide the way out. It was precisely this treasure that allowed the Thunderwind Towers group to avoid countless dangers along the way. At this time, this treasure was leading the way for Lin. Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart and stopped abruptly. In the misty swamp far away, an extremely strange mountain emerged. This mountain was shaped like a god that had come from hell, and it lay in ambush on the ground. It had the head of a bird and the body of a beast, and it revealed a savage, ferocious, and icy cold aura. It was just a mountain, but it brought Lin a suffocating sense of danger. The pointer in the black jade plate rotated rapidly, indicating that there was great danger in the nearby area. However, Lin Sun did not avoid it this time. After thinking for a while, he quietly stopped in the nearby swamp. After silently calculating for a moment, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and countless Taoist patterns appeared and condensed into a large formation, covering the place where he stood. In an instant, Lin Sun's figure seemed to disappear out of thin air, and all the aura of the formation was restrained. Whoosh, Lin Sun sat cross-legged in meditation and began to restore his physical strength. An hour later, Lin Sun, who had just recovered half of his physical strength, quietly opened his eyes and looked out of the formation. A group of figures appeared in this swamp that was suffused with mist, and the person in the lead was shockingly Huangfu Xiaonon. Dressed in a bright yellow robe and a feather crown, he walked like a dragon and walked like a tiger. His every move was domineering and domineering. "Senior brother Huangfu, we can be sure that Jindi entered this swamp, but his trace disappeared in this area," said a black-robed man. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. As he looked around, wisps of mysterious runes gushed out of his pupils. His name was Duan Xingxi, the core successor of Heaven and Earth Taoism court. He was born with a pair of treasure eyes, which could see through the falsehoods of mountains and rivers. In front of Duan Xingxi, a black copper lamp was floating. The wick was burning with a green flame, and various strange scenes could be vaguely seen in the fire. This lamp was called Illuminating Spirit Lamp, an ancient secret treasure that had been passed down for a long time. It could capture and illuminate any camouflage and concealment, which was extremely magical. "Senior brother Huangfu, the ghost-like mountain in front is very abnormal. It hides an extremely dangerous aura. On the other side, a green-clothed young woman spoke swiftly. A string of fine and dense violet-colored bells was coiled around her fair and crystalline wrist, and at this moment, it was droning and trembling while emanating a strange and obscure fluctuation. The woman was called Nyebawi, and the violet bells on her wrist were called fiend bells, and it was an ancient secret treasure. At practically the first possible moment, the gazes of Huang Fu-Xiaonong and the others shot towards the extremely distant mountain that was shaped like a ghost god and emitted a savage and ferocious aura. It stood towering within the swamp and was suffused with mist, causing it to seem mysterious and horrifying. Huang Fu-Xiaonong went silent for a moment, and then he said swiftly via voice transmission, "Jin Di will definitely choose a safe area to cultivate and recover his strength, and the more dangerous the place is, the safer it is. Duan Xingxi, continue searching for this kid's target," he instructed. Profound symbols arose in Duan Xingxi's eyes as he nodded. Huang Fu-Xiaonong shot his gaze towards the others, and he said via voice transmission, "Everyone else, prepare to attack with all your strength. Remember, no matter what happens, don't approach that strange and dangerous mountain." "All right," the others nodded. This kid was able to defeat the encirclement of Zhu Fiyu, Tu Qinjue, Yin Yuro, and the others while he was at the Sky-Earth Secret Realm. Moreover, he annihilated Kong Zhao and all the other experts of the primordial Dao Court not long ago. This time, I don't want any mishaps to occur to us. Huang Fu-Xiaonong's gaze was deep. The hearts of the others shook. At a time like this, would anyone dare to underestimate Jin Dui? They'd taken Jin Dui to be their number one enemy since a long time ago. Suddenly, Duan Xingxi's expression remained unchanged as he said via voice transmission, "Everyone, pay attention. There's a Dao marking restriction formation 10 kilometers southwest of us. If nothing unexpected happens, then Jin Dui is lying dormant within it, and it's even very likely that he's noticed us. Everyone, don't make a sound for now." A wave of excitement arose in the hearts of Huang Fu, Xiaonong, and the others. Yet their expressions were very calm and didn't reveal the slightest fluctuation of emotion. It was as if they hadn't noticed anything. This kid is quite cunning. Even if he's exposed while hiding here, he can still rely on that strange and dangerous mountain to help him resist calamity. Huang Fu Xiaonong sneered via voice transmission. "If I'm not wrong, so long as he makes a move, he'll definitely intentionally destroy that strange and dangerous mountain and cause all of us to fall into danger from there." Many people gasped in their hearts while their gazes flickered. "Nyebawi, are you able to deduce the dangers hidden within that mountain?" Huang Fu Xiaonong swiftly asked via a voice transmission. "That mountain is extremely strange, and it seems to contain a destructive force hidden within it. Even though I'm unable to determine its exact location, according to my inference, so long as we're 15 kilometers away from the mountain, then even if some danger occurs, we'll be able to avoid it at the first possible moment." Nyebawi rubbed the violet-colored omen bell on her wrist as she swiftly deduced. "So that's how it is." Huang Fu Xiaonong revealed an expression of contemplation, and he suddenly said after a short while, "This kid intends to harm us, so why don't we beat him at his own game? What do all of you think would happen if we were to draw out the destructive force within that mountain at the first possible moment?" Everyone was first stunned, and then a wisp of unusual excitement couldn't help but surge out from their hearts. Beat him at his own game and counterattack? It's feasible. When he saw that everyone had no objections, Huang Fu Xiaonong said via voice transmission, "All right, then we'll pretend that we didn't notice this kid's tracks, turn around, and leave. Leave everything else to me." Everyone nodded. However, right at this moment, a wave of Dao marking fluctuations arose abruptly in the distance, and then Lin Sun's figure appeared. This caused Huang Fu Xiaonong and the others to be stunned. Never had they imagined that Lin Sun would actually take the initiative to show himself at this moment. For a time, it caused them to be unable to carry out their plans. "Since all of you have come, then why are you leaving? Could it be that all of you have ulterior motives and intend to do some despicable things?" Lin Sun spoke indifferently. Since he noticed the traces of Huang Fu Xiaonong and the others at the first possible moment, he'd been thinking of relying on the destructive force of that strange mountain to draw trouble to these enemies and give them a lethal blow. Unexpectedly, Huang Fu Xiaonong and the others hadn't made a move for a long time, and they'd been conversing via voice transmission all along. This caused Lin Sun to instantly have a premonition that something was off. This was the same as when he was tracking Thunderwind Tower before. It seemed that there were no flaws, but in fact, Kong Zhao had already seen through it. Lin Sun couldn't help but suspect that Huang Fu Xiaonong and the others might have already noticed his existence, so they behaved very strangely. "Let's do it." Huang Fu Xiaonong didn't answer at all. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They moved straight out of the swamp with all their strength, as if they were escaping. Lin Sun's pupils suddenly narrowed. Without hesitation, he also moved to the distance, as if he was going to chase after them. But both sides knew that this was not a chase at all, but a dodge. When they arrived at the periphery of the swamp, Huang Fu Xiaonong suddenly stopped, turned around, and looked at Lin Sun, who took the initiative to approach him. With a sneer, "Jin Di, without the protection of that mountain, you haven't recovered your physical strength. How can you fight against us?" Duan Xingxi and others couldn't help sneering. Wanted to shift the blame to others? Now, it was impossible. In this case, why don't we all suffer together? Lin Sun also smiled. He suddenly took out the insignificant bow and shot an arrow at the mountain in the depths of the swamp behind him. Chapter 2072. The arrow flew across the sky like a gorgeous light, tearing the sky at an incredible speed. Huang Fu Xiaonong and others changed their faces. Was this guy crazy? He directly launched an attack to detonate the terrible danger. When they wanted to stop him, it was too late. Then, in the depths of the swamp in the distance, a dazzling thunder hand suddenly appeared on the ghost-like and ferocious mountain peak. It gently grabbed in the void. The blue arrow shot by Lin Sun with insignificant bow had no power to resist at all and was caught by the thunder hand. Boom! The next moment, the thunder roared and shook the sky. The swamp shook violently. A dazzling light tore the mist and illuminated the mountains and rivers, along with an extremely terrifying aura of destruction. The mountain seemed as if it had awoken from its eternal slumber, and it surged with countless blazing, dazzling, and extremely gorgeous bolts of lightning. The lightning was like a waterfall, a torrent, and an eruption of magma. Strands of arcs of lightning tore through the sky and flowed within it. As they flickered and flickered, they pierced and tore apart the nearby space. Vaguely, a mighty figure emerged from the blazing and dazzling lightning, like a thunder dominator born in the destruction. This, Huang Fu Xiaonong and others were all horrified. Their scalps were numb, and they all dodged far away without hesitation. It was terrible. That mighty figure was full of the supreme breath of destruction, which was strange and horrible. Even looking at it from a distance, it was terrifying. However, before Huang Fu Xiaonong and others dodged, Lin Sun had already rushed to them. "Everyone, why do you want to leave since you are already here?" Before his voice died away, in an instant, Dense Taishian Sword Qi roared out. 10 direction, sword rain. Like a sword curtain, it covered all directions and also enveloped Huang Fu, Xiaonong, and others. "You're courting death. This guy is crazy. Kill! Hurry up!" With a loud shout, Huang Fu Xiaonong and others attacked with all their strength. All kinds of magical treasures and Taoist magic whistled out. In the roar, the 10-direction sword rain was defeated. But Lin Sun's figure suddenly flashed and appeared in front of a strong man closest to him, pointing out with one finger. Chi! A bright light shot out from the tip of his finger. The expert from a universe, Dao, Court fell to the ground. The heavy blade in front of him cracked and shattered, and a bloody hole appeared between his eyebrows. The power of the prickly edge was vividly displayed at this moment. But at the same time, a sword Chi suddenly came from behind and chopped at Lin Sun, like a light cutting through the ages in an instant. Lin Sun sensed the danger with a chill on his back. However, Xiao Chun did not dodge. A primal chaos, Tao, domain, surged around him, turning into a rumbling, churning abyss. A horrifying and boundless devouring power spread out. Bang, bang, bang. That strand of sword chi collided with the abyss, producing a deafening rumble. Then it exploded inch by inch, obliterated and devoured by the abyss. Not until now did Lin notice that it was Huangfu Xiaonong who attacked. Without giving Lin Sun a chance to breathe, all kinds of treasures and secret methods had been bombarded, dazzling like a group of comets falling from the sky. The successors of the universe Tao Court were full of killing intent, and they attacked with all their strength. Especially Huangfu Xiaonong. His performance was the most dazzling. His bright yellow robe fluttered, and the laws around him transformed into a huge golden python dragon that galloped around him, faintly revealing the might of a monarch descending to the world. Under his control, a green Taoist sword with cloud patterns shot out like a bolt of lightning, releasing a green sword chi that was thousands of meters long, and it smashed down. Every single strand of sword chi seemed as if it contained a world of darkness within it, and it revealed a grand scene that was powerful, magnificent, and boundlessly vast. Bang! The attacks that covered the sky competed with Lin's Sun. With Lin's Sun as the center, the abyss covered the sky and devoured all directions, and all the Taoist techniques that came at Lin's Sun exploded and were annihilated like fireworks. Some treasures were like moths stuck in a spider's web, struggling ceaselessly and unable to approach Lin's Sun. Only Huangfu Xiaonong's green underworld sword, Qi, seemed unbelievably fierce and terrifying. The sword edge and the abyss collided fiercely, producing an earth-shaking rumble. Rise! On the other side, the four successors of the universe Tao Court suddenly made a move together, releasing a large silver net. The ropes that were woven into the large net crisscrossed like the Order of the Great Way, and it flowed with the terrifying aura of Emperor Tao. When the large silver net fell from the sky, it gave people a feeling that the net of heaven was wide and flawless. Emperor treasure, and it was an extremely terrifying treasure. At this moment, Lin Sun felt a sense of danger in his heart, as if a cage of heaven and earth had descended, and it wanted to completely suppress and shackle him in it. Slash! Almost at the same time, a fist-sized purple furnace appeared above Huangfu Xiaonong's head, and a total of 72 purple flying swords swept out from it, and the sound of the swords shook the 9 heavens. Shockingly, the violet furnace was an extremely miraculous emperor artifact. It contained 72 flying swords within it. Every single sword flashed out. They revealed terrifying phenomena and emanated horrifying sounds of slaughter. Obviously, in order to deal with Lin's Sun, Huangfu Xiaonong had long planned and prepared meticulously for this. In such a killing situation, even the existence of the quasi-emperor realm would be afraid and desperate. In fact, at this moment, Lin Sun was indeed in an extremely dangerous situation. There was a mysterious and terrible silver net above his head, and there were purple flying swords coming from all directions with monstrous light. Looking around, it seemed that there was nowhere to hide, and there was nowhere to escape. But at this moment, he saw a bronze seal rushed up, blooming with infinite divine brilliance, and the destructive aura soared into the sky, oppressing all directions to collapse. Great Way lifeless seal. With a rumble of collision, the silver net was blocked and violently rolled by the Great Way lifeless seal. The faces of the 4 successors of the universe Tao Court who controlled the silver net changed, and their chi and blood tumbled, and they almost lost control of the silver net. At the same time, the apricot yellow boundless flag of the Grand Tao flashed through the sky. The surface of the flag swayed and flipped, shooting out countless strands of sword chi. Every strand of sword chi was like a peerless god of swords that had descended into the world, and they fought ceaselessly with the violet flying swords. Clang, clang, clang. The 72 purple flying swords were shaken constantly, buzzing and trembling, and could no longer move forward. In a flash, the killing situation was broken. The Great Way lifeless seal, the Great Way boundless flag. In the distance, Zhuan Yuheng was also among the crowd besieging Lin Sun. When he saw the two Kunlun Emperor weapons that helped Lin Sun show off his invincible power, he was shocked and couldn't help feeling bitter. In the past, these two Emperor treasures that possessed supreme divine might should have belonged to him, Zhuan Yuheng. However, it just so happened that he'd missed the opportunity to obtain these two treasures, and he'd even paid the price of the Void Great Tao Plate. This was also one of the 9 Emperor weapons of Kunlun. Time? Fate. While Zhuan Yuheng was sighing in his heart, Huangfu Xiaonong's face also changed slightly. Originally, he thought that with the 2 Emperor weapons, he could easily kill Lin Sun with the help of the 2 Emperor weapons. Who would have thought that Lin Sun could reverse the situation and turn the situation around with only 2 Emperor weapons? But Huangfu Xiaonong didn't panic. He took a deep breath and waved his sleeves. Swish! At the same time that he controlled the 72 flying swords from the purple furnace, a golden rope flashed through the air. A shocking scene appeared. The Great Way lifeless seal that was fiercely colliding with the silver net was actually tied up by the golden rope. It was done. Huangfu Xiaonong's eyes flashed with a touch of light. This rope was his true trump card, and it was called the Treasure Binding Golden Rope. It was a miraculous Emperor artifact that had been passed down since ancient times. This treasure didn't possess any lethality, yet it was capable of restraining and trapping all sorts of treasures in the world. Before coming to the ancient immortal forbidden area, some old monsters of Qingquan Taoist court had deduced that top peerless cultivators like Mi Wuya and Ling Hongzhuang must have all kinds of trump cards in their hands, and they also didn't lack Emperor weapons. Under such circumstances, if he wanted to compete with these people, he must work hard on his trump card. Then, Treasure Binding Golden Rope, the most precious treasure of Qingquan Taoist court, was lent to Huangfu Xiaonong for use in the competition in the ancient immortal forbidden area, so that Huangfu Xiaonong could use it to restrain the powerful treasures in the hands of his opponents. At this moment, it was the first time Huangfu Xiaonong had utilized this treasure, and he'd obtained a miraculous effect with a single strike. Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a wave of surprise when he saw the Great Way lifeless seal being restrained and about to be taken away by Huangfu Xiaonong. He realized that this treasure binding golden rope was probably similar to the copper coin of Treasurefall in Old Toad's possession, and it was a treasure that specialized in restraining treasures. With my current strength, I'm still unable to truly refine and absorb a treasure like the Great Way lifeless seal. Otherwise, how could I possibly be restrained like this? Lin Sun sighed in his heart, yet his movements weren't slow at all. Whem! The Grand Tao Tower that seemed as if it was constructed from glazed divine gold floated up into appearance, and it circulated while emanating strands of dark golden light of the Tao. Bang! The bright golden rope was actually like a dead snake, and it was crushed and forcefully suppressed by the dark golden light of the Tao. Huangfu Xiaonong didn't give Huangfu Xiaonong any time to react at all before the rope was restrained by the dark golden light of the Tao and swept into the Grand Tao Tower. Huangfu Xiaonong had always seemed to be extremely wise and composed, yet when he witnessed this scene, his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets, and he almost stomped his feet. How could this be possible? The treasure binding golden rope was capable of restraining most emperor treasures of the same rank in the world, and it could be said to be extremely miraculous. It was regarded as the ultimate treasure of the Universe Tao Court, and it was a treasure that had helped the Universe Tao Court restrain countless great enemies since the primeval times. Yet now, this treasure had been suppressed instead. It's that pagoda. It's the inheritance pagoda of Mount Fongsuan. However, this treasure vanished a long time ago during the Tao battle of the emperors of the ancient times. Why? Why did it fall into this person's hands? Zhuan Yuheng's cry of surprise sounded out from afar, and his expression was shocked as he'd recognized the Grand Tao Tower. What? The expressions of Huangfu Xiaonong and the others changed when they heard this reminder. They suddenly recalled some terrifying rumors about this pagoda, and their hearts trembled. So this fellow is a survivor of Mount Fongsuan. Someone shouted furiously. This fact caught them off guard. Originally, when they found out that Jindi was Lin Sun who'd caused a ruckus in the Kunlun ruins, they felt it was unbelievable. After all, everyone had taken him to be the successor of the origin returning Dao court. Yet now, when they found out that this Lin Sun who'd caused a ruckus in the Kunlun ruins was actually the successor of Mount Fongsuan, their shock and surprise were indescribable. Chapter 2073. The great Dao endless tower glowed and floated in the air. It seemed to be eternal and could suppress the past, present, and future. Although the treasure was quickly put away by Lin Sun, the gazes of Huangfu Xiaonong and the others had completely changed when they looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun, this ruthless figure who had once caused havoc in the Kunlun ruins and caused the ancient path of the starry sky to tremble, was actually a remnant of Mount Fongsuan. In an instant, Huangfu Xiaonong recalled what the elders of the sect had warned him before he entered the ancient, immortal, forbidden area. The purpose of this operation is firstly to seize the fortune related to the Chaos Treasure, and secondly, to deal with Jindui. At that time, the successors of the Panwu and primordial Dao courts will attack together with all of you. At that time, Huangfu Xiaonong thought that this was an operation by the three Dao courts against the successors of the Guiyuan Dao court. But now it seemed that things were far from that simple. Or perhaps, whether it was the Universe Dao court, Panwu, or primordial Dao courts, they had probably already seen through Jindi's true origins. Thinking up to this point, Huangfu Xiaonong shouted coldly, "No matter what, we must kill this brat this time. Kill, kill, kill." The other successors of the Universe Dao court also realized the seriousness of the problem. Their killing intent surged as they exerted all their strength. Rumble. The battle became more and more intense. Especially Huangfu Xiaonong. His might became even more terrifying. While activating the Purple Furnace's 72 flying swords, he developed his own Dao domain to clash head-on with Lin Sun. The other successors of the Universe Dao court also used their trump cards and various forbidden secret techniques to besiege Lin Sun from all directions. For a time, this expanse of heaven and earth rumbled and was drowned by blazing Dao light. Wind and lightning surged, gods and demons roared, saints wept blood, the sun was destroyed, and the moon sank. All sorts of phenomena appeared. That scene was enough to shock the world. After all, whether it was Lin Sun or Huangfu Xiaonong's group, all of them were already at the peak of the Saint King realm. The Dao and techniques they possessed had long since surpassed the standards of their peers. Such a battle could probably only be seen in the ancient path of the starry sky and the restricted areas of the ancient path of the starry sky. However, it was hard for Huangfu Xiaonong to believe that even if he and others besieged Lin Sun together, they couldn't suppress Lin Sun for a while. It should be known that he was ranked second on the All Heavens King Saint ranking, a peerless genius second only to Mi Wuya. His name had shaken the universe a long time ago, and his radiance had dazzled the heavens. Countless old monsters thought highly of him, believing that he would be able to easily step through the threshold of the martial emperor realm in the future. But now, the scene that Lin Sun fought against all of them by himself gave Huangfu Xiaonong a huge blow. He even wondered what the outcome would be if it was a one-on-one battle. It wasn't just Huangfu Xiaonong. Even Zhuan Yuheng and the other disciples of the Universe Dao court found it difficult to accept, and their expressions became unsightly. A remnant of Fongsuan Mountain was already this powerful. How terrifying was Fongsuan Mountain when it was at its peak? Condense. Suddenly, Huangfu Xiaonong shouted loudly with a solemn expression, and his body seemed as if it was on fire as boundless and dazzling green divine light surged out from it. And in front of him, a decree appeared. There was only one word written on the decree: punish. Every stroke was branded with a terrifying will that belonged to a figure in the martial emperor realm. The aura it emitted caused the entire area to explode, unable to bear the pressure of such power. As the decree rose into the air, Huangfu Xiaonong's eyes became bright and resolute. This decree was written by an old man with his own willpower, and he even paid a certain price for it. Its power was so strong that no one under the martial emperor realm could resist it. Originally, this decree was carried by Huangfu Xiaonong as a trump card, and he planned to use it when fighting for the Chaos Treasure. But now, he couldn't care less about it. Boom! The mighty pressure of the martial emperor realm swept through the world like a whirlwind. Whether it was Lin Sun's power or the power of others, they were all completely suppressed in an instant. Even those martial emperor realm treasures were buzzing and trembling, unable to move under the terrible restraint. Lin Sun's pupils suddenly shrank, his muscles tightened, and his hair stood on end. An unprecedented sense of danger surged in his heart. Die! Huangfu Xiaonong spat out a word lightly. His voice was cold and murderous, and he seemed extremely confident and conceited, as if he was the master of life and death. Buzz! A punished character flew out from the Emperor Dao decree. In an instant, the energy in the heavens and the earth seemed as if it had been completely extracted and converged into that punished character, causing it to become even more dazzling and resplendent, and it surged with a supreme and terrifying aura. Zhuan Yuheng and others couldn't help but be shocked, and they stopped what they were doing. This was the willpower that belonged to a figure in the martial emperor realm. It couldn't be desecrated at all, and they couldn't interfere anymore. Lin Sun quietly turned over his palm, and a suet jade bottle appeared. Meanwhile, the Endless Way tower in his body was ready to make a move. This attack was indeed too dangerous, and it even made him feel threatened. But before Lin Sun could take action, a big hand suddenly appeared out of thin air, covered the sky, and grasped the word punish in one hand. Boom! A violent roar resounded, and the world shook. The huge hand was formed by countless intertwining thunderbolts, and it was extremely dazzling. It covered the sky with a single hand. Huangfu Xiaonong's expression froze, and he was completely dumbfounded. Zhuan Yuheng and others were stunned as well. No matter how they racked their brains, they'd never imagined that the martial emperor's decree would be grabbed by a huge hand before it could exert its might. After that, they felt a chill run down their spines because they noticed that this huge hand had surprisingly come from the depths of the swamp. Earlier, a strange mountain in the depths of the swamp seemed as if it had awakened from its slumber, and it surged with an endless rain of lightning. When they looked over at this moment, they saw that in the area covered by the lightning storm, dazzling arcs of lightning were like dense divine chains of the Great Way, and they danced wildly in the heavens and the earth. A mighty figure faintly appeared within them, and it was like a god of lightning that had walked out from destruction. At the same time, Lin Sun gasped, and his expression changed slightly. Even he'd almost forgotten that there was an even more terrifying danger in the depths of the swamp when he fought fiercely with Huangfu Xiaonong and others just now. Before Lin Sun could figure it out, the huge lightning hand that covered the sky had rumbled down from the sky. Let's go. Huangfu Xiaonong's soul almost left his body. Without the slightest hesitation, he led everyone to flee madly towards the distance. Moreover, he utilized an escape talisman. This was similarly one of Huangfu Xiaonong's life-saving means, and it was extremely precious. But now, he couldn't care about all this. In an instant, their group vanished mysteriously. Lin Sun fled as well, and he was even a step faster than Huangfu Xiaonong and the others. But right at the instant he fled, his body seemed as if it was shackled, and he couldn't move anymore. On the other hand, a hoarse and low voice resounded by his ears. You shot an arrow at me, yet you still want to flee? In the next moment, Lin Sun's vision blurred, and his entire body was taken away. When his vision recovered, he saw that he'd already arrived at the depths of the swamp, and before his eyes was an omnipresent lightning storm that surged and roared like a torrent or slithered like numerous pythons. The dazzling lightning flickered and emitted an aura that caused Lin Sun to feel suffocated. He had a strong premonition that so long as he was struck by that strand of lightning, his life would surely be lost here. But the strange thing was that even though he was in a place of lightning storm, those lightning bolts seemed as if they had eyes of their own, and they merely flowed by his side without harming him in the slightest. Right at this moment, Lin Sun saw a cage that was formed from numerous colorful lightning bolts that were interwoven together. Green, blue, black, white, gold. Every single lightning order was gorgeous and dazzling, and the cage they transformed into emanated a dazzling and illusory feeling, causing it to seem as if it wasn't something that could exist in this world. Moreover, a figure was imprisoned within the cage, even though he was sitting cross-legged on the verge of death, and his aura was dispirited and weak. He gave others a mighty and boundless feeling like a god. His long gray hair hung down like messy grass, and his body was covered with scars left behind by lightning. Even though his face couldn't be seen, his gaze was sharp like a sword, and it surged with the terrifying and boundless energy of the Great Way. The moment he was stared at, Lin Sun's whole body stiffened like a tiny ant being stared at by a god in the sky. He was horrified in his heart. An extremely strange mountain, standing in the depths of the swamp, had transformed into the boundless lightning power of the Order, and it had suppressed a godlike figure here. This was incredible. Who was he? Why was he suppressed here? When did the successor of Mount Mind become so weak? A hoarse and low voice resounded, and it revealed disappointment that couldn't be concealed and indescribable rage. You were merely besieged by a group of bastards from the Universe Tao Court, yet you actually almost suffered misfortune. You've simply thrown the face of Mount Innerheart. Lin Sun was stunned and said, "Senior, you know my identity?" "Nonsense. If you weren't the successor of Mount Mind, you would have been killed by me just by shooting that arrow." In a magnificent cage formed by the Order of Thunder and Lightning, the scarred figure raised his head, and his long gray hair fluttered like seaweed. On the other hand, his voice had become much more gentle and deep. "You don't have to be nervous. Actually, there's quite a deep relationship between me and Mount Innerheart, so I definitely wouldn't, and I disdain to harm a little fellow like you." Relationship with Mount Mind. Lin Sun's tense mind relaxed a lot. After thinking about it, it was reasonable that even a wisp of the power of thunder and lightning here could kill him. But none of this happened, which at least proved that the figure trapped in the cage would not harm him for the time being. "May I know your name, Senior?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. The figure in the cage was stunned and said, "Didn't Jun Huan mention me to you when you came to the forbidden area of ancient immortals?" Jun Huan. Lin Sun now knew that the unreasonably beautiful girl who liked to wear robes decorated with pink roses was actually his senior sister. When he came to the forbidden area of ancient immortals this time, the scene of Mount Buzhou in his mind came from Jun Huan. However, neither Jun Huan nor Li Xianwei ever mentioned to Lin Sun that there was an old friend suppressed by the power of the Order of Thunder in this forbidden area of ancient immortals. Today's update resumed as usual, and the second update was a little later. Chapter 2074. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun shook his head and told the truth. No. The figure in the cage couldn't help asking, "Think about it again. Jun Huan really didn't mention me at all?" He seemed to be a little excited. "I won't lie," Lin Sun said. That figure swiftly stood up, and then he suddenly grabbed the cage formed from the Order of Lightning with both hands and said, "It can't be. How could Jun Huan be so heartless? You must have remembered wrongly. Think about it again. Think about it carefully." There was a hint of pleading in his voice. Lin Sun was stunned. Although this figure was injured, he was still as imposing as a god. It seemed that he had a different feeling for senior sister Jun Huan. But in the end, Lin Sun still said, "Senior sister Jun Huan only gave me a brand related to Buzhou Mountain." The figure said anxiously, "What did she say at that time? Tell me the whole story." Lin Sun said, "Senior, I didn't even meet senior sister Jun Huan when I came here. Even the brand was given to me by senior brother Li Xianwei." "I see." The figure was stunned. After a long time, he seemed to have lost all his strength and slumped in the cage, looking extremely lonely and lost. But very quickly, he pulled himself together, slapped his thigh, and said with a smile, "Back then, Jun Huan and I entered the ancient immortal forbidden area together, and we also went to explore Mount Buzhou together. Since she gave you a brand related to Mount Buzhou, This proves that she still remembers what happened back then. Although she never mentioned me. As he said this, his voice became low again, and his expression became gloomy. Lin Sun finally dared to conclude that the guy trapped in the Thunder Order cage was obviously deeply in love, and trapped by love. The figure took a deep breath and said in a gentle voice, "My young friend, you are junior brother Junhuan, so you're not an outsider. It is fate that we can meet here. While I'm still sober, can you tell me something about Junhuan?" Awake? Lin Sun keenly noticed that something was wrong. The figure sighed and said, "A long time ago, after I was trapped here, I suffered a serious Tao injury, causing my mind to be muddled and lose all consciousness. The reason I was able to wake up this time is because of the stimulation from that arrow of yours. However, so long as this cage formed from the lightning Tao order is still here, it won't be long before I fall into muddle-headedness again." Lin Sun looked at the cage, transformed by the Order of Thunder, and said, "Can't you break it?" The figure shook his head. "This is the order of the Thunder Tao that belongs to the ancient, immortal, forbidden area. It's different from our cosmic ancient path. Its power is mysterious and terrifying, comparable to the forbidden power of the great Tao distributed in the cosmic ancient path." Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp. Presently, he was all too aware of how terrifying the taboo energy that was distributed throughout the starry sky was. So, from this comparison, it was obvious how extraordinary the order of the lightning Tao in the ancient immortal restricted area was. Back in those days, I was known as the Thunder Emperor of Silence. I thought my attainments in the lightning Tao were the best in the starry sky. Even Jun Huan praised me a lot. Suddenly, the figure spoke with a sense of self-mockery. But who would have thought that in this ancient, immortal, forbidden area, I was defeated by the order of the Thunder Tao that I was most familiar with? Don't you think it's a great irony? The Thunder Emperor of Silence. The best in the great Tao of Thunder. Lin Sun was shocked and couldn't believe it. Yes, a supreme existence that was so powerful that he was worshipped as the Thunder Emperor was defeated by the great Tao that he was most familiar with. Who wouldn't feel ridiculous and believe it? Let's not talk about these things in the past. The figure sighed. "My young friend, can you tell me about Junhuan now?" Lin Sun thought for a moment and told the story of his encounter with Junhuan when he was traveling through the starry sky. Haha, Junhuan is still the same as before. She disguised as a man and traveled through the starry sky. Not to mention you. Even some people in the Emperor realm can't see that she is a woman. The figure laughed with joy, and his whole body glowed with an indescribable spirit. It seemed that he recalled the beautiful figure that once fascinated him. When I first met her, I was also very surprised. How could there be such a beautiful and outstanding man in this world? Later on, we traveled together for a long time. Only then did I find out that Jun Huan was actually a woman. His voice carried a tone of recollection, and his face was covered in a smile. You don't even know how happy I was at that time. There seemed to be a voice in my heart that said, "How fortunate is it to be able to meet such a good person on my long path towards the Tao?" But when he said this, the smile on his face was replaced by a strong bitterness. But in Jun Huan's eyes, she only regarded me as a brother, a confidant, and a friend. Lin Sun thought it was really so. Perhaps this was the feeling of falling flowers longing for love, but heartless running water. Just look at the Thunder Emperor of Silence who once shook the starry sky. After being trapped here for so many years, his consciousness was muddled, and he was covered with injuries. He just woke up a little, and instead of thinking about how to get out of here, he kept thinking about senior sister Junhuan. He was simply a fool in love. "I'm sorry, my young friend." The figure seemed to notice that he had lost his composure and stopped talking about the past. Instead, he said, "There's not much time left. Before you leave, I have a gift for you." As he spoke, a strand of white and translucent electric arc swept out like a snow-white snake and finally turned into a mark. I practiced the Thunder Tao since the primitive times. Although I followed the path of my predecessors, I've already opened a new path when I became emperor. I've established a school of my own in the Thunder Tao, and when I broke through to the threshold of the 9th level of the Emperor realm, No one in the starry sky dared to compete with me in the thunder Tao. There was a touch of incomparable conceit and disdain in the voice. In this mark is the great quietus thunder scripture, which I created by myself. There are also some insights I've gained on the way to seek the Tao. I'm willing to give it to you. Whether you comprehend it by yourself or teach it to others, I won't lose what I've learned in my life. He looked at Lin Sun seriously and solemnly. I hope my young friend will accept it. Lin Sun was shocked and said, Senior, do you think I can never get out of here in this life? The figure shook his head. There's not enough time. When I woke up this time, my remaining power was almost exhausted. If nothing goes wrong, when my consciousness falls into a muddled state again, I'm afraid I'll never wake up again. I want to have a try. Lin Sun took a deep breath and said, You? The figure said, I don't want to discourage you, but I know better than you how supreme and powerful the Thunder Tao is. If you think you can break it with some emperor treasures, he carefully chose his words and spoke very euphemistically, as if he was afraid to discourage Lin Sun. But his voice stopped abruptly in the middle of his words. His pupils dilated, and he said in surprise, This is the Bodhi wood? Lin Sun had already taken out the scorched Bodhi wood and nodded. Before I came here, my senior sister Rosa once said that the great way of thunder is distributed in the forbidden area of ancient immortals. Maybe it can bring the Bodhi wood back to life. Rosu? She is the most low-key descendant of Mount Heart and Heart. Almost no one knows her existence, but anyone who knows her will be impressed by her demeanor. The figure sighed with emotion. Even when Juan Huan talks about her, he speaks of her with admiration and respect. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong. Wait, as far as I know, Ruosu has never been to the forbidden area of ancient immortals. How can she know that there is the power of thunder in the forbidden area of ancient immortals? Is it? Lin Sun said with a smile. I just realized that it must be senior sister Juan Huan who told Ro. The figure became excited and said in a trembling voice, It turns out that Juan Huan asked you to come here. She still cares about me. Lin Sun couldn't help saying, Senior, I'm just giving it a try. I'm not sure that the Bodhi can really help you get out of trouble. Haha, that's enough. As long as Juan Huan still cares about me. So what if I can't get out of trouble? Even if I die here forever, I will have no regrets. The figure roared with laughter that was filled with indescribable joy. The dignified lightning emperor of Nirvana, a supreme overlord whose name had once shaken the starry sky and awed the world, was actually laughing like a child at this moment. Lin Sun sighed with emotion in his heart. The word love was really inexplicable. It seemed that no matter humble people or powerful people in the Emperor realm could escape this obstacle. Suddenly, the figure let out a muffled groan as if he was suffering great pain, but he still laughed. For countless years, today is the happiest day. Lin Sun had no time to sigh with emotion. He had sensed that the figure's condition was not right. It seemed that he was unconscious. Without hesitation, he threw the Bodhi wood in his hand into the torrent of thunder. Boom! The ocean-like lightning Tao order was like a shark that had smelled blood. It emitted world-shaking rumbles as it charged toward the Bodhi tree. In an instant, the withered Bodhi tree split into pieces and transformed into powder. Moreover, the strand of the forbidden tribulation energy that was sealed within it had been completely wiped out. Lin Sun was stunned and a little unprepared. Why couldn't it? If you want to be reborn, you must sublimate in destruction. This is the way of thunder. The figure's voice sounded like a ringing bell. When the spring thunder moves, all things are awakened. The essence and mystery of thunder lies in the destruction and rebirth. Look, my young friend. When he finished speaking, he could vaguely see a hint of tender green gathering in the dense fog in the midst of the rolling thunderstorm. It was extremely inconspicuous, but along with the passage of time, this wisp of green gradually became more condensed and deep, and an indescribable aura of life spread out along with it. The aura of life was extremely indistinct and faint at the beginning, but it quickly became dense. Chapter 2075. Rumble. In the nearby area, the thunderstorm was like a torrent constantly striking and striking. The touch of green vitality and the breath of destruction was astonishing. All these were the power of the law of thunder, full of supreme power of destruction. The Thunder Emperor of Silence was a proud and peerless existence, but he had been suppressed here for countless years. Even his mind was muddled, and he was unable to get out of the trap. It could be imagined how terrifying the law of thunder was. However, that wisp of green vitality blocked all of the attacks and attacks. It was crystal clear, flowing with green vitality. Like a grass that was constantly ravaged in a storm, it seemed extremely tenacious and tenacious. Every single destructive attack would cause it to suffer terrible devastation, but every single time, it would miraculously survive. Destruction and rebirth are like the rotation and alternation of life and death. The phoenix bathes in fire, so it can be reborn in nirvana. The rhythm of vitality of all things in the world is hidden in the mystery of the law of thunder. The voice of the figure surged as if he was passing down the Tao. However, lightning is in charge of slaughter, and it walks the Tao of destruction. Seeking the power of life amidst the destruction of lightning is too difficult. It's just like when a cultivator breaks through and overcomes the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation that covers the sky caused the souls of countless cultivators to disperse and perish amidst destruction. However, so long as one's able to overcome the heavenly tribulation, then one's cultivation would obtain a complete transformation as if one was reborn. As the figure explained, Lin Sun stared blankly at the touch of green vitality that was constantly transforming and sublimating in the destruction of thunder and lightning, and all kinds of enlightenment surged in his heart. He had cultivated the green wood Taoist body and mastered the supernatural power of life and death. So when he witnessed the transformation of the touch of green from the Bodhi tree, he had a different understanding. The mystery of thunder, explained by the Thunder Emperor of Silence, gave him a new understanding of destruction and rebirth. The law of thunder is the strongest and most domineering. It controls killing, destroys, turns life and death, and develops nirvana. Even the tribulation aura covering the whole world uses the power of thunder as a means of divine punishment. When a voice surged in Lin Sun's heart, the great quietus thunder scripture, which had turned into a mark, also quietly poured into a sea of consciousness and turned into a mark shaped like thunder and lightning. Boom! For a time, all kinds of mysteries about the Tao of thunder surged into Lin Sun's mind like a tide. Pictures of Tao related to thunder, scenes of amazing visions derived from thunder and roaring thunder. They all turned into the mysterious power of inheritance, making Lin Sun fall into a strange state of enlightenment and unable to extricate himself. This was the supreme Tao scripture that the Lightning Emperor of Nirvana had personally created, and it even contained the Lightning Emperor of Nirvana's comprehension and experience from his cultivation until now. Those who knew the silencing Thunder Emperor would be shocked and find it hard to believe. Because a long time ago, the Lightning Emperor of Nirvana was publicly acknowledged as the #1 Lightning Emperor in the entire universe on the ancient path of the starry sky. He was proud, conceited, and possessed peerless talent. He wandered through the universe and was worshipped as the supreme exalt of the Tao of Lightning. His might was so great that he was like the sun that shone alone, and he'd created countless legends that were sufficient to shake the ages. For someone like him, he already had the resources to establish his own sect. But everyone knew that the Lightning Emperor of Nirvana was too proud. He was so proud that he thought that no one in the world could inherit his mantle. So he didn't accept any disciple until he entered the forbidden area of ancient immortals. But now, just because Lin Sun was Jun Huan's junior brother, he integrated all his mantle into a brand and taught it to Lin Sun. If this was known by others, what would they think? Love me, love my dog. Jun Huan. Jun Huan. If I can get out of here, I'll definitely go to find you. I know you're worried that I'll be implicated because you're the successor of Mountain of Mind and Heart, but how can I care about this? In the cage, the figure murmured, "As long as I can see you again." Even if I'm the enemy of the whole world, it doesn't matter. In the distance, Lin Sun looked stunned and intoxicated. He was immersed in enlightenment and couldn't extricate himself. In the torrent of thunder, as time went by, the green crystal vitality, like a seed, broke out of the shell and germinated in the destruction. Bathed in the impact of the Tao of Thunder, it began to flourish little by little, far away from the swamp. The expressions of Huangfu Xiaonong and the others were uncertain. All of them felt that they had survived a disaster. The previous scene was too terrifying. An Emperor Dao decree had been easily crushed into pieces by the lightning palm that blotted out the sky, and it caused Huangfu Xiaonong and the others to not dare imagine how terrifying the consequences would be if they were slightly slower in fleeing at that time. That guy didn't escape this disaster. Someone suddenly laughed in schadenfreude. All of a sudden, the others also reacted and couldn't help laughing. Previously, Lin Sun wanted to use the power of that weird mountain to trap them with the trick of diverting the trouble to others. But now he was the one who was tricked. This was like shooting oneself in the foot. Who could he blame for his own death? No, he definitely won't die. Zhuan Hung suddenly snorted coldly. He's the successor of Mountain of Mind and Heart. How can he die so easily? Everyone was startled, and someone said unwillingly, in the past, Fansuan Mountain was indeed powerful enough to make the heavens tremble. However, in the Tao War of the ancient martial emperors, Fansuan Mountain's orthodoxy was destroyed. He's just a remnant. How could he not die? Yes, the power of the Thunder Hand just now is at least the power of the Emperor realm. How can he, a Saint King, resist it? Others also said. Zhuan Hung took a deep breath and said coldly, "Don't forget that he not only has the Great Way Lifeless Seal and the Great Way Wufang flag, but also the Tower of Inheritance of Mountain of Mind and Heart, which is the most precious treasure left by the Master of Mountain of Mind and Heart. How can it not save his life?" Everyone looked at each other and didn't understand why Zhuan Hung was so optimistic about an enemy. However, Huangfu Xiaonong suddenly said, "Junior brother Zhuan is right. Lin Sun can't be measured by common sense. Whoever dares to underestimate him will end up miserably." After a pause, he continued, "Everyone, don't forget how Zhu Feiyu and the others were defeated by this kid in the Xianwang secret realm. Don't forget that not long ago, Kong Zhao and the others from the Antiquity Dao Court were all killed by this kid." Everyone fell silent, and their hearts were in turmoil. Lin Sun, a survivor of Mountain of Mind and Heart, had once wreaked havoc in the Kunlun ruins, causing rivers of blood to flow and shaking the starry sky. He had also used the identity of Jin Dui to shine brilliantly in the Dao Discussion Conference and was invincible. However, could he really survive that thunderous hand? No one dared to believe it. However, after hearing Zhuan Hung and Huangfu Xiaonong's words, they didn't dare to think that Lin Sun was really dead. "Let's wait here for a while, and then we'll go to the swamp to take a look." Huangfu Xiaonong took a deep breath and made a decision. If he's alive, then we'll attack with all our strength and kill him. If he's dead, then we'll help him collect his corpse. Someone's eyes lit up. Yes, this kid not only possesses many mysterious and unfathomable emperor treasures, but he also possesses a great fortune to become an emperor ancestor. We can't miss it. Many people were extremely tempted by this sentence. However, to the surprise of Huangfu Xiaonong and the others, along with the passage of time, the lightning energy that covered the depths of the swamp was still surging and surging, and there was no sign of it disappearing. There's definitely something wrong with this abnormal situation. "Senior brother, should we continue to wait?" Someone asked with a frown. It should be known that the most important purpose of this trip to the ancient immortal forbidden area was to seize the treasure that was born in Mountain Buzhou. The longer they delayed here, the more it would affect their next actions. After a moment of silence and contemplation, Huangfu Xiaonong made a decision. Wait a little longer. The chaos treasure of Mountain Buzhou isn't something that can be obtained easily. On the other hand, killing Lin Sun and seizing the fortune and treasure in his possession is right before our eyes. We can't miss this opportunity. Lin Sun, who was immersed in enlightenment, was awakened by a strange sound. Chun-Shi raised his eyes and looked over. A small tree that was only 15 centimeters long had suddenly appeared amidst the extremely dazzling torrent of the order of the Tao of Lightning. The bark on its stem was like dragon scales that spread out, and it was suffused with a crystalline sheen that seemed like jade, yet wasn't jade, seemed like iron, yet wasn't iron. Its branches were tender and slender, and only 3 extremely verdant leaves hung on them. The leaves were completely round, and they emanated green and glistening divine radiance and the glow of the Tao. A vigorous rhythm of life, like the sea, diffused from the small tree, which even the rolling torrent of thunder, Tao couldn't block. Looking from a distance, the small tree was green and rooted in the destructive thunder. It looked so small, but it gave people a sacred and supreme feeling, like the backbone that held up the sky. Its whole body was filled with the mysterious and unfathomable aura of the Great Way. The strange sound just now was made by this small tree. Lin Sun was stunned and shocked at once. There was no doubt that the scorched Bodhi tree had been reborn in the destruction. It had been reborn from the killing of the Thunder Tao and completely transformed and came back to life. Although it still looked young, the air it exuded was so wonderful that Lin Sun was shocked. It was visible to the naked eye that this small Bodhi tree was greedily absorbing the torrent of Thunder Tao. The Thunder Tao, which was powerful enough to suppress the Thunder Emperor of Silence, seemed to have become the most delicious nourishment in front of this small Bodhi tree, which urged it to thrive, radiated its rhythm of life, and made it transform and sublimate in the destruction. This kind of divine tree can only be seen in the unknown place. It has the mysterious power of the Great Way. Even I have seen it for the first time. In the cage, the Thunder Emperor of Silence, who called himself Ji Xian, said, "I once heard that the Bodhi tree is regarded as the ancestral tree of all Tao because it contains all kinds of traces of the Great Way. When it truly matures, every single branch will be like the order of the Grand Tao, and every single leaf will be branded with the Grand Tao law. And one day, when it condenses into a Bodhi fruit, it can even evolve into a universe." When he heard this, Lin Sun couldn't help gasping in shock. Chapter 2076. Bodhi Tree. When Lin Sun met Holy Monk Du Ji and Black Phoenix Holy Queen, he saw a real Bodhi tree in a scene that seemed to go back to the ancient times. That big tree was strong like a dragon lying on the ground. Its branches were towering and full of antiquity. Its leaves were like green jade carvings, sprinkling hundreds of millions of green clouds, which dyed the world into a sacred atmosphere. At that time, Holy Monk Du Ji and Black Phoenix Holy Queen sat under the Bodhi tree, studying Tao and deducing secret methods. After countless years of changes, the two of them finally created the supreme Taoist scripture, the great treasury of solitude scripture. Lin Sun clearly remembered that Holy Monk Du Ji once made a solemn oath with a smile on his face. "If I become a devil, I will make all Buddhas in the world become devils. If I become a Buddha, there will be no devils in the world." These words were simply domineering to the extreme, and they carried the spirit of being lawless and supremely supreme. But because the Dharma scripture they created was too powerful, they were killed by the taboo power. No one knew whether they were alive or dead. Only a piece of Bodhi wood with the taboo tribulation aura was left, which was finally obtained by Lin Sun. At this time, after listening to the words of the Thunder Emperor of Silence, Lin Sun suddenly realized a problem. Who was the one who destroyed the Bodhi tree that he saw in the past, leaving behind only a piece of charred, deadwood? Taboo power? But according to Ruo Su, the Bodhi wood was born in an unknown place, which was enough to resist and seal taboo power. Inexplicably, a thought came to Lin Sun's mind. Is it the nameless Supreme Emperor? Lin Sun's eyes flickered. He couldn't figure it out, but he was sure that the towering Bodhi tree, with hundreds of millions of green clouds, had been destroyed, but now it had been reborn in the bombardment of the Thunder Order in front of him. Although it was still very young, sooner or later, it would definitely grow into a towering tree again and sprinkle hundreds of millions of green clouds. Ji Xian said, "Of course, what I said is just a rumor. How many mysterious mysteries are hidden in the Bodhi tree? Maybe you can only understand it yourself in the future." Lin Sun nodded. At this moment, suddenly, a strange gray flame appeared in the sky, full of lightning, and shrouded the Bodhi tree. Last day's flame. Ji Xian's expression changed abruptly, and he made a grabbing motion outside the cage. Boom! A simple and material lightning seal surged into appearance, and it was inscribed with profound lightning Dao markings as it blocked the wisp of strange gray-colored flames. "Put away the Bodhi tree," Ji Xian shouted. With a flick of his sleeve, Lin Sun took back the sapling of the Bodhi tree and put it into the Tower of Endless Way. At practically the exact same time, rumbling resounded. The gray flame was extremely overbearing, and it instantly incinerated the lightning seal. Lin Sun broke out in cold sweat from shock. That was the attack of the Lightning Emperor of Nirvana. It was like a piece of paper and wasn't a match for the last day's cleansing flame at all. However, right at this moment, the last day's cleansing flame vanished without a trace. Ji Xian said with relief. Fortunately, it didn't touch the flame, otherwise the Bodhi tree would have been incinerated. Subsequently, Ji Xian explained to Lin Sun. The Dharma cleansing flames were born from the supreme order of the ancient immortal restricted area, and it's extremely terrifying. No matter if it's a cultivator or a divine being like the Bodhi tree. Once they're touched by this flame, they'll surely be incinerated into ashes. Just like before, it must be because the transformation of the Bodhi tree was so amazing that it attracted the attention of the last day's cleansing flame, so it almost led to a catastrophe. Lin Sun's expression changed slightly as he realized the horror of the last day's cleansing flame. He said, "So, the Bodhi tree is useless to help you get out of here?" Ji Xian's eyes revealed a strange look. It seemed that he didn't expect that Lin Sun would still think about helping him get out of here at this time. "It's enough." Ji Xian took a deep breath and said, "The Bodhi tree has absorbed about 30% of the power of the Thunder Order, and it is no longer as powerful as before. If I try my best now, I may be able to get out of here." Lin Sun's black eyes lit up. "Senior, do you still need my help?" Ji Xian smiled slightly. "No need." As he spoke, he stood up in the cage. His untidy and disheveled gray hair fluttered in the wind, and his stalwart figure was suffused with a terrifying aura. At this moment, he was like a thunder dominator that had walked out of destruction, and he caused this area to tremble violently. Buzz! Buzz! The cage that suppressed him produced waves of strange fluctuations, and the colorful power of the Thunder Order pressed down fiercely like a landslide and a tsunami. Ji Xian took a step forward, stretched out his hand to grab the cage, and tore it apart. The cage formed by the Thunder Order was actually forcefully torn apart to the point a huge crack appeared, and countless bolts of lightning shot out like a waterfall and struck Ji Xian fiercely, causing his skin and flesh to split open. His body was severely damaged and was on the verge of dissipating, but he seemed to be completely unaware of it. He took a step forward and forcefully stepped on the crack that had been torn open, and then he rushed out of the cage. His peerless and arrogant posture was like a god that had broken the shackles and rushed out of the cage. Rumble, in the nearby area, the Thunder Order was completely violent and rushed to Ji Xian like crazy. The power released made Lin Sun's hands and feet cold, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. It was too horrible. He was not even qualified to intervene, let alone help. In a flash, Ji Xian's figure was submerged by the thunderstorm, and his body was destroyed inch by inch. Just when Lin Sun was extremely nervous, a loud laugh sounded from the bright and blazing thunderstorm. "Let's go." Whoosh! The next moment, Lin Sun only felt that his whole body was wrapped by a soft force, and then he disappeared. When his vision became clear, Lin Sun found that he was still in the depths of the swamp. From a distance, he could still see the rolling Thunder Order rumbling and rolling violently between heaven and earth. However, Ji Xian was nowhere to be seen. But the next moment, Ji Xian's voice sounded, "Thank you, my young friend." Lin Sun looked down and noticed that there was a black jade talisman hanging on his front lapel. The jade talisman was flowing with obscure light, which looked extremely mysterious. Ji Xian's voice came from this black jade talisman. "Right now, I only have the power of the spirit left. Only by hiding in this sky-shrouding talisman can I avoid the suppression of the Thunder Order." Ji Xian said quickly, "So, I can only trouble you to take me out when you leave the forbidden area of ancient immortals." Lin Sun said without hesitation, "It's my duty." Ji Xian said, "Even though I can't help you kill your enemies, I can give you some pointers on some secrets related to Mount Buzhou. Perhaps I can help you avoid some dangers and find that chaos treasure faster." Lin Sun's eyes lit up. Like senior sister Juanhuan, Ji Xian had also gone to Buzhou Mountain to explore. As an Emperor realm existence, his understanding of Buzhou Mountain must be incomparable to others. With his guidance, the benefits were self-evident. "Thank you, senior." Lin Sun thanked him seriously. Ji Xian said, "Don't be so polite. You are Juanhuan's junior brother, so we are of the same generation. I'm older than you, so you can call me Brother Ji Xian from now on." Lin Sun's expression was a little strange. The dignified Thunder Emperor of Silence wanted to talk to him as an equal and asked him to call him brother. "Why? Can't I let you call me brother?" Ji Xian said. Lin Sun quickly said, "Brother Ji Xian." Ji Xian smiled with satisfaction. "You can only rely on yourself for the next action. If you encounter a disaster, as your brother, I will protect you even if I have to risk my life." The voice fell into silence. Lin Sun wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. In the end, he did not disturb Ji Xian. He knew very well that in order to escape, Ji Xian's remaining strength was on the verge of exhaustion. "As long as I'm alive, I can recover completely in the future." Lin Sun could not help but look forward to how great the Thunder Emperor of Silence would be when he reappeared in the world. Far away, the overwhelming power of the Thunder Order was gradually dissipating and falling into silence. So, it's been 4 days, Lin Sun was lost in thought. In these 4 days, he got to know Ji Xian, the Thunder Emperor of Silence, and obtained the inheritance of the great Quietus Thunder Scripture. Even a Bodhi tree was reborn and turned into a real Bodhi tree sapling. In particular, after several days of Tao enlightenment, his cultivation had improved greatly, and he was now only a step away from the perfection Saint King realm. Silently feeling the surging qi around him, Lin Sun took a deep breath and looked out of the swamp in the distance with his black eyes. "It's time to leave here. I wonder what Huangfu Xiaonong and others will think if they know I'm still alive." Lin Sun stepped forward and walked into the distance. "Senior brother, it's been 4 days. Do we still have to wait?" Outside the swamp, Huangfu Xiaonong's group was concealed within an ancient forest, and every single one of them had slightly impatient expressions. "Look, the power of the Thunder Order is beginning to dissipate." Suddenly, Zhuanqiu Hung showed a look of joy. Everyone looked up and saw that in the depths of the swamp, the terrible power of the thunder that covered the sky and the earth was gradually receding like a tide. "Get ready. We'll act right away. Remember, don't be careless. If something goes wrong, you must fight with all your strength. Don't hold back." Huangfu Xiaonong's eyes were clear, and his voice was powerful. Everyone nodded in unison. "Let's go." When the power of the Thunder Order in the depths of the swamp disappeared completely, Huangfu Xiaonong and others who had been waiting for many days started to act without hesitation. Everyone's heart was burning like a fire. If Lin Sun died, he would definitely leave behind several mysterious emperor treasures and a supreme opportunity to become an emperor and ancestor. Even if he was lucky to survive, he would never expect that they would come back to kill him. Bang! As soon as Huangfu Xiaonong and others entered the swamp, suddenly, a sound of bowstring vibrating like wind and thunder broke through the sky and resounded between heaven and earth. Not good. At this moment, their faces changed, and they chose to dodge almost immediately. Chapter 2077. In fact, Even Lin Sun didn't expect that he would meet Huang Fu Xiaonong and his followers when he planned to leave the swamp. After all, for days had passed. Who would believe that he could still walk out of the world covered by the order of thunder and lightning alive? But after the surprise, an unparalleled killing intent surged in Lin Sun's heart, and he chose to attack without hesitation. The sound of the bowstring vibrating like wind and thunder was naturally made by the insignificant bow, and it was the blue arrow that was shot out. Go up to heaven and down to hell. Boom! An arrow cut across the sky, just like a streamer tearing the eternal time and space, and suddenly appeared at this moment. Its sharpness changed the color of the world. Huang Fu Xiaonong and his followers reacted quickly. While dodging, they also activated their own defensive power and released various treasures to protect themselves. Bang! Light splashed and blood rained like a waterfall. The bronze shield in front of a successor of the Qingquan Dao court and the defensive light around him were all pierced through by a resplendent arrow light, like a hot knife through butter. The arrow pierced through his body. He lowered his head and saw that there was a bloody hole where his heart should be. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he fell to the ground after only one word. Because the arrow pierced not only his heart, but also his soul was completely smashed in an instant. The arrow arrived, and he died. A chill surged in the hearts of Huang Fu, Xiaonong, and the others. Only now did they suddenly remember that many people of Kong Zhao's group had died under Lin Sun's bow and arrows on the way not long ago. Buzz! Huang Fu Xiaonong released the 72 flying swords of the purple furnace and attacked Lin Sun in the distance with all his strength. The others didn't dare to neglect and attacked with all their strength. But Lin Sun didn't give them a chance to get close at all. As he pulled up the insignificant bow, he shot 3 arrows in one breath. Bang! 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 The shocking bowstring sound was like the roar of dragons and tigers. 3 arrows with monstrous killing intent tore through the sky. Puff! Scarlet blood splashed. A woman was pierced between the eyebrows, and her skull was opened. She died in a shrill scream. Clang! An arrow was blocked by a spear. In the collision, the strong man holding the spear was severely shaken and blood spurted from his mouth and nose. Bang! The last arrow shattered a flying sword a blue-robed man had summoned. The blue-robed man's face turned pale, and he almost fell from the sky. 3 arrows. 1 person was killed, and 2 were heavily injured. Such a sharp and peerless force of slaughter caused the eyes of Huang Fu Xiaonong and the others to almost split apart from rage, while flames of rage burned within them. Rumble! They had rushed to the front of Lin Sun, and each of them used their trump cards to attack Lin Sun with all their strength. For a time, all kinds of treasures and Taoist magic whistled, dazzling the world and shaking the mountains and rivers. Lin Sun did not retreat. He took out the Great Tao Lifeless Seal and the Great Tao Wufang flag. His body developed the chaotic domain as he charged forward with all his might. For a time, this swamp seemed as if it was on the verge of exploding, and it revealed a scene of ruin and chaos. On the battlefield, Lin Sun was surrounded by chaos. Every move he made had the momentum to collapse the sky and sweep the void. He was indeed too strong. He released his Taoism and Taoist magic to the extreme at this moment. With the Lifeless Seal and the Wufang flag, it was enough to restrain the attack of any Emperor treasure. In just a moment, with a deafening roar, the blue-robed man who had been injured before was blown up by Lin Sun's punch. Clatter! Blood splashed, and minced meat flew. The bloody scene stimulated the eyes of Huang Fu Xiaonong and the others to turn red. Kill! They roared, and each of them tried their best. Their divine power was vast, and their killing intent was monstrous. But no matter how they attacked, they couldn't break Lin Sun's chaotic domain, let alone hurt others. Boom! Before long, with the sound of swords, another person was killed on the spot. His body was cut into countless pieces by the dense Taishian sword Qi, just like a death by 1,000 cuts. But Lin Sun didn't look at him and rushed to another target without hesitation. That arrogant and domineering posture and the power that pushed the whole field was like an invincible demon. This made Huangfu Xiaonong and the others unable to believe their eyes. Because a few days ago, they also besieged Lin Sun. Although they didn't gain any advantage at that time, they could fight evenly with each other. But now, they were completely at a disadvantage and suppressed to the point that they couldn't even lift their heads. In fact, the reason was very simple. Before the battle broke out a few days ago, Lin Sun had consumed more than half of his physical strength and hadn't recovered yet. But now it was different. His physical strength not only recovered to the peak state, but also made further progress in several days of enlightenment. Under such circumstances, the power that Lin Sun broke out was naturally incomparable to before. Go to hell. When the battle went on for 15 minutes, Lin Sun used the sting of sharpness and pressed his finger. An overmatch who was only 4 feet away from him died on the spot. And this was the 5th person killed by Lin Sun since the beginning of the battle. If the 2 people who died in Lin Sun's hand a few days ago were added, a total of 7 core descendants of the Universe Taoist Court had been killed. This was definitely a shocking number. If it was spread out, it was very likely to cause a great uproar and make the world tremble. After all, each and every one of them was an overlord of the peak Saint King realm, a peerless existence that was 1 in 10,000. Go to hell. Before long, as Lin Sun moved forward, an opponent couldn't dodge in time and was swallowed into the chaotic field. His body and soul were obliterated inch by inch, and he died. Lin Sun, you deserve to die. Huangfu Xiaonong was completely furious. He couldn't calm down and was about to go crazy. In order to deal with Lin Sun, he had prepared a lot of means, and he had never been careless and treated Lin Sun as the #1 enemy. But he still didn't expect that this opponent would be so terrible and so nature-defying, which completely subverted all his previous cognition and speculation. Lin Sun's black eyes were cold, and his expression was indifferent. This time, there were as many as 17 descendants of the Universe Taoist Court who followed Huangfu Xiaonong. But now there were only 9 people left. Almost half of them were lost. But Lin Sun didn't feel any pity in his heart. This trip to the ancient immortal forbidden area was originally for the sake of fighting for the chaotic treasure. But whether it was Kong Zhao and the other descendants of the primitive Taoist court, or Huangfu Xiaonong and the other descendants of the Universe Taoist court, all of them regarded him as a thorn in their eyes and killed him at all costs. How could Lin Sun not be angry? What's more, his identity had long been exposed, and he had no scruples in his heart, so it was impossible for him to show any mercy in battle. Puff! In next to no time, another person was killed. The broken blade cut open his throat and cut off his head, causing scarlet and hot blood to sprinkle down. This world was chaotic, bloody, and tragic. Emperor treasures fought for supremacy. Taoist techniques rumbled, and shocking scenes of battles played out. In this scene, Lin Sun killed like the wind. Let's go. In the end, someone couldn't hold on any longer, and he turned around and fled in fear. Seeing this, the others also fled one after another. No one was not afraid of death. Even the supreme figures of the Emperor realm would still be afraid, panicked, and timid when they were really facing death. What's more, these descendants of the Universe Taoist court had an extremely bright future, and they had a background and reputation that was enough to make the world envious. Who was willing to die here? Lin Sun's strength surprised and horrified them. Up until now, their fighting spirit faintly showed signs of collapsing, and they began to feel panic and fear. If they wanted to live, they could only flee, including Huangfu Xiaonong. When he saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel a burst of sadness in his heart, and his hands and feet were cold. He knew that the situation was hopeless. Huangfu Xiaonong also fled, and he fled even faster than the others. What dignity! What pride! Everything was thrown to the back of his mind. He was a peerless genius ranked second on the All-Heaven King list, a dazzling genius whose name shook the starry sky, and countless old monsters unanimously thought highly of him. But now, he just wanted to live. Lin Sun wasn't surprised that this scene would happen, or it could be said that he had seen many similar scenes in these years of fighting and killing. No matter what the identity of the opponent was, no matter how great the enemy was, as long as they couldn't defeat him, they would inevitably flee. However, Lin Sun didn't intend to give up. Ignoring the others, he chased after Huangfu Xiaonong. What's more, as long as Huangfu Xiaonong was killed, the core descendant of the Universe Taoist court would lose a pillar. In the distance, Lin Sun stretched out his finger. Great void-breaking finger, boundless world. Thousands of meters away, Huangfu Xiaonong, who was moving in the void, suddenly waved his palm and blocked the power of the finger. Boom! The collision of the two only made Huangfu Xiaonong's figure shake. But before he could react, with a roar, a divine arrow broke through the air and shot at him. It was dazzling and emitted a fierce aura that could destroy the world. Rise! Huangfu Xiaonong shouted, and the purple furnace 72 swords swept out. After an earth-shattering collision, the arrow was also blocked. But when Huangfu Xiaonong was about to continue to flee, he found that Lin Sun had already seized the opportunity to move. Huangfu Xiaonong, who ranks second on the All-Heaven King list, is also scared out of his wits. As Lin Sun spoke, he raised his fist and punched out. The fist force was chaotic and intertwined with the magical law of the Great Way. The nearby void collapsed like fragile glass. Lin Sun, where possible, one should forgive and forget. If you go too far now, you will only die an ugly death in the future. Huangfu Xiaonong took a deep breath, and his body shone as he fought Lin Sun head-on. But in a flash, his figure was shaken by the punch and staggered back. His face turned blue and white, and he felt bitter and sad in his heart. It turned out that in a one-on-one fight, he, who ranked second on the All-Heaven King list, was also so weak. At this moment, Huangfu Xiaonong, who had always been extremely confident and conceited in his strength and foundation, suffered a heavy blow in his heart. If you can't win, you flee. If you can't escape, you threaten. This kind of vulgar thing is too common. But I didn't expect that such words would come from the mouth of a person like you. It's so disappointing. Lin Sun didn't hide his ridicule and continued to kill. His figure covered the chaotic Tao domain, and his momentum was like that of a devil. Chapter 2078. Huangfu Xiaonong's hair was disheveled, and his expression was terrifyingly livid. He'd realized that it was impossible for him to escape this time, so he completely calmed down instead and aroused an unprecedented fighting spirit within him. This was the resources and reserves of a peerless figure. Lin Sun, you forced me to do this. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Huangfu Xiaonong took a deep breath and developed his Tao domain. Bang! A boundless, vast world surged into appearance, and every grain of sand, stone, grass, and tree that grew within it revealed an aura that was fierce like a sword. Green darkness, sword world. Along with Huangfu Xiaonong's attack, countless ghastly sword qi descended like a screen of green darkness. Besides that, he'd utilized the 72 swords of the Violet Furnace to blast Lin Sun together. Drag me down with you? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Lin Sun laughed with ridicule. The chaotic Tao domain rumbled and transformed into the shape of an abyss, and it was like a whale swallowing water as it swallowed the sword qi that covered the sky. The two Tao domains collided in the sky like two worlds were in battle. One was vast and mighty sword qi, while the other swallowed the heavens and the earth, and it revealed a scene that could shock the ages. On the other hand, the lifeless seal firmly restrained the 72 swords of the Violet Furnace. Rumble. After a short moment, the vast green darkness sword world was ceaselessly swallowed by the chaotic Tao domain, and then it collapsed in the sky in the end and transformed into a rain of light that covered the sky. Huangfu Xiaonong's face was ghastly pale while his pupils dilated. The Tao domain was the embodiment of a cultivator's attainments. Yet now, he'd completely lost in a one-on-one head-on collision. Or perhaps it could be said that it was a competition of one's own attainments. No wonder Senior Taishu Hong said that the rankings of the King Sage rankings would be rearranged after the Tao Discussion Grand Meeting. Looks like he's noticed that trash like you isn't worthy of the title of second at all. Lin Sun spoke indifferently. Even if the rankings are rearranged, there's no place for you, Lin Sun. Don't forget that you're a survivor of Mount Heart. Huang Fu Xiaonong retorted coldly. As they spoke, he attacked once more and developed his own Dao and technique, and he seemed like a cornered beast that was still fighting. He was clearly aware that he was no match for Lin Sun, yet he refused to give up. This surprised Lin Sun a little. Just think about it. Even if a figure like Huang Fu Xiaonong wasn't a match for him, Huang Fu Xiaonong could be considered as a peerless genius amongst those of the same generation and was extremely dazzling. So it was absolutely impossible for Huang Fu Xiaonong to give up so easily. Boom! Lin Sun didn't show any mercy. He firmly suppressed Huang Fu Xiaonong to the point that he couldn't raise his head and fell into a passive position. In merely a short moment, Huang Fu Xiaonong had already coughed up blood repeatedly, and his entire body was covered in injuries, causing scarlet red bloodstains to dye his clothes red. If you still have a treasure like the Emperor's Dao decree in your hands, you might still have room to struggle. Lin Sun suddenly asked. A strand of indescribable shame and rage suddenly surged out from Huang Fu Xiaonong's heart when he was reminded so kindly by his enemy, and he couldn't help but howl. Lin Sun, you're going too far. He seemed to have gone berserk as he charged out violently. He didn't care about his life anymore. If he had another Emperor's decree, why would he need to risk his life here? He had probably used it long ago to kill his opponent. I'm going too far? If you hadn't overestimated yourselves and courted death, would this have happened? Lin Sun sneered. Before long, he used the Swanee seal and smashed Huang Fu Xiaonong to the ground in one fell swoop. Bang! Smoke and dust filled the air, and a human-shaped pit was cracked on the ground. Huang Fu Xiaonong lay in it, bathed in blood and twitching violently because of the pain. This peerless genius, who was famous in the starry sky and ranked second on the Holy King list, was now crawling on the ground like a dead dog, extremely miserable. At this time, if other successors of Qingquan Taoist court saw this, they would not dare to believe that this was the first core disciple of their Taoist court. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. A hoarse and low voice came from Huang Fu Xiaonong's mouth, like the roar of a beast before its death. It was full of unwillingness, anger, and hatred. Why not? Lin Sun's figure floated to the ground and looked down at Huang Fu Xiaonong with no sadness or joy. Suddenly, Huang Fu Xiaonong turned around with all his strength and said word by word, I'm defeated by you, a remnant of Mount Mind. I won't accept it even if I die. Lin Sun was stunned. He was so unwilling and unconvinced just because he was the successor of Mount Mind. This seemed very unreasonable. But Lin Sun knew that this was Qingquan Taoist court's hostile attitude towards Mount Mind. They hated Mount Mind to the core. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun said resolutely, Don't worry, sooner or later, I, Lin Sun, will defeat your Qingquan Taoist court. Puff! A wisp of Tai Xian sword chi swept out and cut off a bloody head. The first core disciple of Qingquan Taoist court, the second on the Holy King list, a peerless genius who was once famous in the world, died just like that. In the void, the 72 swords of the purple stove wailed and were completely suppressed by the Great Way lifeless seal. You brought this upon yourself. So what if you, Huang Fu Xiaonong, are famous? When you die, everything will be in vain. Lin Sun shook his head, and his heart was calm. Killing Huang Fu Xiaonong did not bring him too many feelings at all. Next, he cleaned up the spoils of war, turned around, and left. Although this battle did not kill all the successors of Qingquan Taoist court, Lin Sun calculated carefully and found that at least 10 people were killed by him. Among them, there were also core leaders like Huang Fu Xiaonong. It should be noted that there were only 17 successors of Qingquan Taoist court who entered the forbidden area for ancient immortals this time. It's time to go to Buzhou Mountain. Lin Sun made a decision when the scene of Buzhou Mountain appeared in his mind. However, he was not in a hurry. It had been less than half a month since he entered the forbidden area for ancient immortals. Lin Sun did not believe that anyone could get the treasure of chaos in Buzhou Mountain in such a short time. The forbidden area for ancient immortals was full of unknowns. No one knew how vast it was, and no one knew how many dangers were hidden here. The 108 overmatches who entered the forbidden area for ancient immortals this time were distributed in different areas. So the news that Lin Sun killed Huangfu Xiaonong and the other 9 people did not spread quickly. But there was no doubt that as time went by, such an earth-shattering news would definitely spread and be known by people. For example, after Kong Zhao and the others were killed by Lin Sun a few days ago, the news was not known until now by many overmatches in different areas. However, the first to get the news was outside the forbidden area for ancient immortals. Next to Yunji Mountain, the atmosphere was oppressive and solemn. The eyes of the emperors flickered, and there was a trace of doubt in their hearts that could not be erased. Just now, the life lamps on the table in front of the Fire Spirit Empress went out one after another, which meant that the core successors of Qinquan Taoist court were suffering a terrible disaster. When the fate lamp that represented Huangfu Xiaonong was extinguished as well, the expressions of all the emperors changed along with it, and they were shocked and moved to the extreme. No one could imagine what had happened in the forbidden area for ancient immortals, but the appearance of such casualties was enough to make anyone tremble. On the other hand, the Fire Spirit Empress's expression was extremely gloomy, and she gritted her teeth tightly without saying a word. Everyone was able to discern that she was in an unprecedented rage. Thinking about it, it made sense. Whose family's descendants suffered such serious injuries? Who wouldn't be angry? Especially Huangfu Xiaonong. He was a peerless genius with a dazzling future, but he died in the forbidden area for ancient immortals. It was so surprising. Many emperors thought back to a few days ago. At that time, the descendants of the primitive Dao court had also encountered a similar massacre, including Kong Zhao. The 12 of them had been completely annihilated. Many emperors felt that it was unimaginable. And the Jian battle emperor of the primitive Dao court, like the Fire Spirit Empress, was burning with anger and almost went berserk. This must be done by the same person. The silent and oppressive atmosphere was broken by the voice of the Jian battle emperor. His face was cold and his voice was cold. Except for Jin Dui, I really can't think of any young man in the forbidden area for ancient immortals who dares to act so recklessly. The emperor's expressions changed subtly. Jin Dui, if it was really done by this child, could it be that he had already sensed something when he attacked so fearlessly? Whether it is him or not, when the trip to the forbidden area for ancient immortals comes to an end, I must avenge those who were killed. The Fire Spirit Empress's voice was low and filled with killing intent. Tai Shu Hong saw this scene and could not help but sigh in his heart. If it wasn't for the Qinquan, Primordial, and Panwu Dao courts giving the order to deal with Jin Dui together, how could such a tragic thing have happened? However, he could not say these words. This storm, no matter who could have a last laugh in the end, his dark yellow Dao court would not get involved either. In the forbidden area for ancient immortals. Amazing, he killed the 12 people of the primitive Dao court by himself. This Jin Dui is far stronger than we imagined. In a canyon covered in flames, Yu Ruhua, who was sitting on a rock, exclaimed in surprise. Beside him, Ji Bai had his hands behind his back, and his gaze was deep. No, he's Lin Sun, the Lin Sun who once wreaked havoc in the Kunlun ruins and obtained the fortune to become an emperor and ancestor. Could it be that you're also tempted by the fortune in his hands? Yu Ruhua seemed to be deep in thought. Who wouldn't be tempted? Ji Bai's expression was indifferent. We have already stepped into the extreme of the Saint King realm, and we don't have to worry about not being able to step into the peak of the Quasi-Emperor realm. However, who dares to say that they can succeed at the threshold of becoming an emperor? Yu Ruhua smiled and said, Then aren't you worried that if you provoke Lin Sun, you will make a great enemy for yourself? Ji Bai said leisurely, On the great way, if you can have one or two confidants, it can be said to be a blessing in life. Similarly, if you can have one more worthy opponent, you won't be too lonely. It seems that you're really tempted. Yu Ruhua stroked his chin and said, Then when do you plan to do it? Jibai thought for a moment and said, how about when he appears in Mount Buzhou? Yuruhua was silent for a moment and sighed softly. Even if I advise you, you won't listen. Why ask me? Jibai immediately smiled. Then it settled. Chapter 2079. The forbidden area of ancient immortals was mysterious, unknown, and full of dangers. But for Lin Sun, the rest of the journey was relatively peaceful. He walked alone among the mountains and rivers, and encountered many dangerous and strange areas along the way. But he was not as nervous as he was at the beginning. These days' experience had already made him familiar with and understand some situations in the forbidden area of ancient immortals, and he could often avoid some fatal dangers without danger. In the evening, a big sun fell into the twilight, emitting shimmering purple light, which dyed layers of clouds purple. It was magnificent. This kind of purple sunset and sunset glow was extremely rare, bathing everything in the mountains and rivers in a sacred and pure atmosphere. Lin Sun walked in the mountains and forests with an indescribable tranquility in his heart. Purple chi comes from the east, auspicious clouds shine, and all things are nurtured in it. Cultivating here, I can clearly understand the traces of the great way that can't be felt outside. Lin Sun put his hands behind his back and walked lightly. Bathed in the purple sunset glow, he inhaled and exhaled the pure breath of the great way in the air, which made his whole body covered with a layer of mist, ethereal and hazy. Walking was like Zen, sitting was like Zen, and his body was natural. At this time, his spirit, chi, and spirit were flowing in his body, in harmony with heaven and earth, resonating with all things, like the unity of heaven and man. This feeling was really comfortable, as if he was riding the wind and ascending to immortality. Tension and relaxation is the way of cultivation. There are great dangers in this world, but there are also great beauties. If I hurry, I will miss the beauty of the great way along the way. Lin Sun's body and mind were happy and peaceful, which was the embodiment of full spirit and smooth chi. A few days ago, he fought a life and death battle with Kong Zhao and the others, and he pursued and competed with them all along the way. When he just annihilated a group of formidable enemies, Huangfu Xiaonong's group had charged over once more, and battle after battle caused his mind to be strained from the beginning until the end, and he'd never relaxed. Now it was completely different. His mind was clear, and his whole body was open and relaxed, with a kind of leisurely atmosphere. What he saw, got, and felt was naturally different. There was beauty in the world without words, and all things in the world without distinguishing. Walking alone in this unknown world, Lin Sun more and more realized the truth that the Great Way was nameless, so it was omnipresent. While walking alone, Lin Sun's chi became more ethereal and ethereal. He seemed to have become a ray of light, blending into the world, mountains and rivers, and integrating with everything. Lin Sun's body and mind entered a deep level of understanding. All the insights and experiences in the past flowed into his heart like a tide and turned into a part of his cultivation. A huge black python coiled around the ancient tree. Its eyes were dark green, and there were dragon scales on its forehead. Its huge body was branded with countless complicated markings of the great Tao, and it gave off a fierce aura that was enough to make a quasi-emperor feel despair. When Lin Sun walked out of the ancient forest, he just looked up at the black giant python and continued to move forward. But the black giant python seemed like it, lying lazily, lying on the ground and all, and didn't notice that it. After a while, it realized something and looked up at the place where Lin Sun disappeared with a trace of doubt in its eyes. At this time, Lin Sun had already left the ancient forest. His body and mind were still immersed in a kind of understanding, experiencing the wonders of nature and creation, and completely forgot himself. Where was the way? Under his feet. Where was the great way? It was omnipresent. With the feeling of body and mind, everything was the way, and every movement was cultivation. After an unknown period of time, when Lin Sun walked into a wilderness, he suddenly stopped. This wasteland was extremely strange as well. Every stalk of grass was several meters tall, and their stems and leaves were plump and colorful. When one walked through it, it was like walking into a multicolored ocean. At the moment when Lin Sun stopped, a sword light shot out from one of the blue plants. The sword intent was ethereal, invisible and intangible, like a flash of light and shadow, incredibly fast. The most terrible thing was that it didn't cause any fluctuation of power from beginning to end. But when the sword light reached a foot in front of Lin Sun, it was firmly clamped by 2 fingers. Bang! The sword light exploded directly, and a rain of light swirled. At the same time, Lin Sun disappeared out of thin air. In the place where he originally stood, a wisp of saber light, a shadow of a spear, and a spike appeared silently. They flashed and crisscrossed in the void, and then disappeared. It could be imagined that if Lin Sun's reaction just now was a little slower, even if he could block the oncoming sword, he couldn't block the killing move from behind. However, Lin Sun seemed very calm from beginning to end. When he avoided this treacherous and ruthless siege, he didn't hesitate to make a move. Buzz! The dense Taishian sword qi swept out and spread in all directions. The huge grass nearby, which was several meters high, was instantly smashed into powder. At this moment, the 4 figures hidden in the shadows also revealed themselves. 3 men and 1 woman, all with obscure and strange breaths. Each controlled a sword, a saber, a spear, and a spike, like peerless assassins from the dark. If it were others, they might not recognize their identities at all. But for Lin Sun, he was too familiar with the breaths of these 4 people. Without thinking, he concluded that these 4 people, like Wu Huang, were all descendants of the divine sunshine ancient sect. Boom! The Taishian sword qi was spreading, and the 3 men and 1 woman kept resisting and dissolving it. Each of their means was extremely powerful. Compared with the core disciples of the Qinquan Taoist court and the untainted land, they were even more powerful. Unfortunately, it was still not enough for Lin Sun. Without any nonsense or mercy, Lin Sun began to kill. Whoosh! His figure disappeared out of thin air, and the next moment, he appeared in front of man. He pressed his palm, and all the Taoism and defense power the man displayed were smashed. Bang! The man was slapped away, and his body exploded in the void with a rain of blood. Let's go! The sword-wielding man let out a howl and fled in different directions with the other 2. At this moment, Lin Sun displayed the first chop of heaven, the infinite sword, and the fist of shaking the sky almost in an instant. Puff! 23,000 meters away, the man with the sword was cut in half, screaming unwillingly. In the other 2 directions, one man's heart was pierced by the vast chaotic finger force, and the other man was smashed into pieces by the fist force like an abyss. In just a moment, the 4 successors of the divine mirror ancient sect were killed on the spot. The bloody scene was enough to shock the world. Lin Sun seemed calm from beginning to end, but there was something strange in his heart. Was this the power of the perfection of the Saint King realm? Yes, after walking alone in the mountains and rivers during this period of time, Lin Sun's cultivation had broken through to the perfection of the Saint King realm. This also made Lin Sun's combat power more powerful and terrible, completely different from before. Cultivation was the root of the Great Way. When he was at the late stage of the Saint King realm, Lin Sun could kill Kong Zhao and the others, let alone now. Just like the 4 successors of the Divine Mirror Ancient Sect who were killed by Lin Sun in a flash. Each of them could be regarded as the peerless cultivators in the same realm, much stronger than the Emperor's apostles like Wu Huang. But in front of Lin Sun at this time, they were as vulnerable as chickens and dogs. After cleaning up the spoils, Lin Sun continued his journey. The only thing that made Lin Sun regret was that the surprise attack changed his state of mind. He could no longer be immersed in that wonderful state to perceive the beauty of heaven and earth in the forbidden area of ancient immortals. However, Lin Sun didn't stay idle along the way. He began to silently comprehend the mystery of the great Quietus thunder scripture. This supreme scripture was created by the Thunder Emperor of Silence. It contained the supreme mystery of the Thunder Tao, broad, profound, and obscure. It also included the insights and experience of the Thunder Emperor of Silence along the way, which could be described as extremely precious. And with Lin Sun's current cultivation, it was naturally not difficult to comprehend it. Just a few hours later, rumble. As Lin Sun's heart moved, the sound of thunder shook inside his body. His internal organs were roaring as if there were lightning intertwining, and his bones were shaking, snow-white and crystal clear, surging with the sound of thunder. He didn't feel pain. Instead, he felt very comfortable. His spirit and body were being combed and cleansed at the same time. Even the potential of his whole body was awakened by the rhythm of the sound of thunder, and it surged vigorously to temper his body. This was the thunder refining method. It tempered the spirit, chi, and spirit with the mysterious sound of thunder, shook the internal organs and skin of the body, so as to achieve the purpose of cleansing one's body and tempering one's cultivation. Moreover, it was difficult for ordinary cultivation methods to touch the root of one's Tao. But the thunder refining method was different. It used the sound of thunder to produce vibrations, and it could make the practitioner's entire body resonate from inside to outside, and it could make the practitioner's potential glow. It could be said to be extremely magical. Soon, Lin Sun realized the beauty of the thunder refining method. It wasn't a method of refining chi, body, or soul, but a method of tempering and cleansing one's cultivation. It could make one's cultivation more solid, and pure. When cultivating in the Tao, one was most worried about an unstable foundation and realm. At the same time, the injuries one suffered in battle might transform into internal injuries and hide in one's body. But with the thunder refining method, one didn't have to worry about all this. Lin Sun couldn't help but exclaim with admiration, and had a deeper understanding of how extraordinary the thunderclap of nirvana was. Besides the great thunderclap Tao refinement technique, the great nirvana thunder scripture also recorded various offensive and battle techniques, such as the Sky Annihilation Lightning Seal, the 5 Lightning Imperial Technique, the Demon Suppression Lightning Prison, the Minor Constellation Thunder Aura Technique, the Great Nirvana 5 Elements Divine Lightning, and so on. Every single method had its own wonders and unfathomable might. The more Lin Sun comprehended, the more shocked he was, and he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The Tao of Thunder deserves to be the most powerful and overbearing Tao of destruction in the entire world. This Tao killed, destroyed, changed life and death, and developed nirvana. Chapter 2080. Now Lin Sun had mastered Taishian Sword Scripture, Endless Devouring Scripture, 9 Cauldrons World Suppression Scripture, Great Way Yellow Court Scripture, and Great Silent Scripture. In addition, there was also the Inheritance of No Return, 9 Changes of Calamity Dragon, Fighting Saint Method, Everlasting Leakless, and so on. It was enough to make the world envious to take care of so many scriptures and inheritances on one's own. But when it came to real cultivation, it was bound to pay a great deal of experience and time. The most important thing was not to bite off more than one could chew. It should be known that the mysteries contained in those scriptures could be described as vast as the sea, including all the major realms of cultivation and all kinds of Taoism, as well as cultivation comprehension and experience. If an ordinary practitioner could get one of those scriptures, it was enough for him to spend his whole life to comprehend and cultivate. Even an extraordinary genius would definitely feel extremely strenuous when comprehending so many Taoist scriptures at the same time. Now Lin Sun had a deep understanding of this. He had all kinds of inheritances and didn't lack fighting methods at all. The only thing he lacked might be the time and energy needed to comprehend. If he could temper the 5 doppelgangers of Tao into divine awareness and Taoism, it was equivalent to having 5 more of himself to comprehend scriptures together. In this way, there was no need to worry about such things. According to Lin Sun's speculation, when he stepped into the realm of Quasi-Emperor, he might be able to temper the 5 doppelgangers of Tao into their own consciousness and Taoism. And now, Lin Sun was only one step away from the realm of Quasi-Emperor. While comprehending the great Quietus Thunder scripture, Lin Sun moved forward and avoided many dangerous areas along the way without any mishap. Also along the way, Lin Sun collected many divine materials and spiritual materials that couldn't be found in the outside world, all of which had unique magical effects and were of extraordinary value. On this day, when Lin Sun passed through a silver desert, an overwhelming aura of destruction came to his face. Extremely far away in the distance, there was an expanse of mountains that rose and fell continuously. They seemed to be boundlessly vast, and they lay across the heavens and the earth. They were ancient and primitive. Looking at it from a distance, it made people feel small. It was too big to be measured. A picture of a mountain appeared in Lin Sun's mind, which was exactly the same as the mountain in the distance. Mount Buzhou. Lin Sun was finally sure that the majestic mountain stretching tens of thousands of miles under the sky was the legendary Buzhou mountain that gave birth to a chaos treasure. Without hesitation, Lin Sun took action and rushed to the distance. The heavens and the earth here were covered in a seemingly material aura of destruction that pressed down upon the hearts of all, and it seemed as if a terrifying calamity would descend at any moment. The sky was gray and overcast, and as the wind howled, a murderous aura rose up like a smoke signal. The murderous aura surged through the land, causing whimpering sounds to echo out. The closer he got to Buzhou Mountain, the more shocking the destructive aura became. It was so oppressive that Lin Sun had to operate his cultivation to offset and dissolve it. His dark eyes were deep, and he became cautious. Rumble. When he approached the foot of Mount Buzhou, various gray and hazy bolts of lightning actually appeared in the sky, and it faintly seemed as if the figures of fiend gods were fighting within it, and they fought to the point the heavens collapsed and the earth sunk while their roars shook the heavens. But when he took a closer look, the scene disappeared like smoke. The world was silent. The ancient mountain was vast and lofty, and there were signs of destruction everywhere on the mountain rocks. There was no grass growing here, and there was no fluctuation of vitality. Only wisps of destructive aura lingered, like a mysterious veil, covering Buzhou Mountain. Lin Sun took a deep breath, operated his cultivation, and explored Buzhou Mountain. Clang! Just a moment later, in the gray mist on one side, a demonic bloody light swept out and attacked Lin Sun. When he looked carefully, it was shockingly a damaged bronze sword that was tainted with dried blood, and it emitted an extremely terrifying aura of destruction. Clang! Lin resisted with the broken sword, but he was shaken and staggered back a few steps. He couldn't help but feel shocked. What a terrible power! With his current cultivation, it was not difficult for him to kill a quasi-emperor, but he was at a disadvantage because of the broken bronze sword. Who wouldn't be shocked? However, when Lin Sun planned to fight again, the broken bronze sword suddenly disappeared. It's really weird. Lin Sun's black eyes flickered. After thinking for a moment, he moved forward again. Buzhou Mountain was extremely large, towering and stretching. Walking in it, people didn't know where to go. As far as the eye could see, it was a vast expanse of mountain rocks and strange rocks. Not long after, Lin Sun's pupils shrank. He saw a body lying on a boulder not far away. It was a handsome man in a purple robe, but his face was full of horror, which made him look very ferocious. In his chest, there was a bowl-sized bloody hole, from which blood was still gurgling, but his heart was gone. Lin Sun recognized that this was a powerful figure from another starry sky, but he didn't expect that his body was exposed in the wild. Was he killed by others, or by the strange thing in Buzhou Mountain? Lin Sun felt a chill in his heart. Buzhou Mountain was quiet and full of unknown dangers. Even if he used his spiritual awareness to explore, he would be blocked by a strange, destructive aura. Ignoring the corpse, Lin Sun continued to move forward. His body and mind were as tense as a bowstring, ready to fight at any time. Before long, a broken and bloody beast claw appeared behind Lin Sun silently. Its sharp nails were like the sharpest blades in the world, glowing with a strange bloody light. Seeing that Lin Sun seemed to be unprepared, the beast claw slammed down fiercely. Boom! Lin Sun didn't look back, but a vivid phantom of the divine beast Fu Luo appeared behind him. It was intertwined with Tao and Dharma, roaring and striking fiercely. A strange scene appeared. The divine beast Fu Luo's strike was easily penetrated by the beast claw like air, without any effect. At the critical moment, the broken sword whizzed out. Clang! The bloody beast claw was blocked, but the sharp broken sword couldn't hurt at all. Instead, it burst into sparks all over the sky. This is the claw of the Emperor Beast contaminated by the destructive aura of Buzhou Mountain. It ignores all the Tao and Dharma under the Emperor realm and should be broken by the Emperor weapon. Suddenly, the voice of the Thunder Emperor of Silence, hidden in the shrouding talisman, sounded and guided Lin Sun. I see. Lin Sun suddenly understood. Swish! The bloody beast claw failed to hit Lin Sun, suddenly glowing with a strange bloody light. The destructive aura was monstrous, and it attacked again with boundless horror. That kind of power was more terrible than that of the quasi-emperor realm. Lin Sun turned over his palm, and the ancient and heavy lifeless seal rose into the air, glowing with a bronze luster, and pressed down fiercely. In the roar, the bloody beast claw trembled violently, but in the end, it couldn't resist the suppression of the lifeless seal and fell to the ground with a bang. The beast claw seemed to have lost all its fierceness and the strange bloody destructive aura, and was completely motionless. If Lin Sun hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that such a beast claw could burst out such a terrible power. The power of rules covering Buzhou Mountain is the most terrible. When I came here with Jun Huan, I was attacked by a fierce beast like this beast claw. Jixin transmitted his voice to Lin Sun. If I'm right, the owner of this beast claw was a fierce beast with the strength of the Emperor realm. After breaking into Buzhou Mountain, it unfortunately met with a disaster, and its beast claw was contaminated with the power of rules of Buzhou Mountain, which turned it into such a fierce beast. Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp. Even an Emperor realm fierce beast had met with a disaster here, and even its corpse had turned into a fierce beast. Just like the bloody beast claw, it was such a fierce beast, strange and terrifying. But you don't have to worry. From now on, I'll guide you. Jixin's words made Lin Sun feel much more at ease. Let's go. Follow this road to the southwest. Remember not to fly in the air, or you'll be attacked by all kinds of strange and fierce beasts. With Jixin's guidance, Lin Sun set off again. Swish! Not long after, a bloody broken feather appeared, demonic and sharp like a demonic sword, cutting through the void and attacking Lin Sun. This was a fierce beast like the beast claw. Lin Sun used the lifeless seal and easily suppressed it. Jixin pointed out, this is a real feather of an Emperor realm fierce beast. Although it's long been damaged, it's one of the best materials for refining Emperor weapons. It's extremely rare in the outside world. Keep it. You'll be able to use it sooner or later. Lin Sun's spirit was lifted, and he quickly kept the broken feather. He didn't expect to get such a treasure after breaking into Buzhou Mountain. Perhaps this was what Taishu Hong said, where there was great danger, there would be great opportunities. Then, various fierce beasts appeared one after another along the way. There were broken arms, blurry heads, broken bones. Although Lin Sun used the lifeless seal to defeat these fierce beasts, he couldn't calm down for a long time. Because according to Jixin, the owners of these fierce beasts were all supreme existences with the cultivation of Emperor Realm when they were alive. Only the remains of the Emperor Realm would be contaminated by the rules of Buzhou Mountain and turn into all kinds of strange fierce beasts. Lin Sun didn't dare to imagine how many Emperor Realm existences had been buried in Buzhou Mountain for so many years. In those years, Jun Huan once laughed that this mountain was a tomb of emperors, and there was a terrible danger that was enough to bury all the Emperor Realm existences in the world. Jixin sighed with emotion. Coming to Buzhou Mountain again reminded him of the time when he accompanied Jun Huan to explore here. Tomb of Emperors? This description was really scary. Lin Sun increasingly realized how lucky it was to have Ji Xian's guidance this time. If he went to explore by himself, it was hard to say how many dangers he would encounter. After a quarter of an hour, in front of a mottled cliff, Lin Sun suddenly heard a low, clanging sound of sword, exuding a sad and sorrowful atmosphere. But when Lin Sun heard it, he was stiff all over, and his scalp was numb. A monstrous sword intent emerged in his mind, cutting down the sky. The unparalleled killing intent almost tore Lin Sun's soul apart. Without hesitation, he suddenly retreated, abandoning the perception of divine awareness. Only then did the effects of the terrifying sword intent dissipate.